number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, November 21st. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is -6 and feels like -12. In Smiths Falls, it is -4, feels like -8. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A leading medical group is heading to Queen's Park today with suggestions on how to improve the healthcare system. City News reporter Chris Curries has the story.
The Ontario Medical Association, including the CEO and frontline physicians, are meeting with cabinet ministers and MPPs to discuss how to increase patient care, shorten wait times, address the doctor shortages, and more. Here's President Rose Zacharias.
And we want to see an investment in palliative care to care for our most vulnerable, and also, by doing so, alleviate the strain that we're all experiencing inside the healthcare system.
The OMA says its solutions include licensing more foreign-trained physicians, creating standalone surgery centers, and creating more hospice beds. Those surgery centers, Zacharias says, would include things like hip surgeries and knee replacements. Chris Curries, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We've got some active weather today, some flurries at times. A couple of centimeters could accumulate in a gusty wind out of the south-southwest. Then it's pretty quiet for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, though, heads up, we could get some freezing rain Friday morning. For today, the guaranteed high, +2.
City News time is 10:02. The CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association says the supply of children's pain relief medicine arriving this week should be enough supply to last about a month. Store shelves have been depleted and demand is increasing for more childhood medication. Justin Bates says some Advil and Tylenol for kids have arrived, and this week's supply will boost hospital and local pharmacy supplies.
And when hospitals started issuing warnings and suggestions how to deal with this, it actually created some panic buying, and that exacerbated the problem. So if we can put these products behind the counter and limit it to one per customer, I think we would definitely, make a difference in terms of keeping the supply available.
And Bates says wake up with Rob Snow. The shortage is a combination starting with the virus season starting early. And Bates says the shipment alone will not last for the entire flu season. The first witnesses giving testimony during the final week of the public inquiry include some of Canada's top intelligence officials. The Public Order Emergency Commission is entering its last weeks of hearings scrutinizing Ottawa's use of the Emergency Act to end last winter's trucker convoy protest. The inquiry has previously heard that CSIS determined the protest did not meet its legal definition of a threat to national security. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to give testimony on Friday to wrap up the hearings. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, let's go, everybody. It is Monday. I'm Sam Laprade. You're going to be joining me for the next 3 hours. We hope you stay with us. We have a lot of great guests for you today. And between 12 and 1, we always do things a little bit different. It's Lunch with Sam. We're going to be feasting on those news stories of the day. And then we do the business lunch. We're going to enjoy that very much today. We hope you stay with us all day. Well, I don't know if you were like me yesterday. I was holding my breath around 5 o'clock yesterday thinking, what is happening with the CUPE workers? Is there going to be a strike or not? And of course, I heard it here on City News. There was no strike. And I know Chandra Pasma was also watching very closely. Hi, Chandra.
Good morning, Sam.
Chandra is the MPP for Ottawa West Nepean. What are your thoughts, Chandra, as we know those education workers are back in the classroom today?
Well, like many parents across the province, I'm feeling a lot of relief that my kids are in school today and that the disruptions aren't continuing. But I'm also feeling a lot of frustration and exasperation with the government that they delayed this so long and created so much uncertainty instead of just coming to the table and negotiating a deal that would have ensured our kids stayed in school with the supports that they need.
Yeah, it certainly felt like we've been put through a lot as parents, and I think about the education workers, but mostly, Chandra, I think about the students. It's been such an uncertain time over the last couple of years, and this just added to it, right? It was a straw that broke the camel's back in many ways for kids.
Absolutely. And what we've seen is that the pandemic really disrupted kids' learning. It really disrupted their mental health. And it has felt like the government has done everything except invest in the supports that they need in classrooms. They made the payout to parents, they invested in private tutoring, and then they refused to come to the table and negotiate a fair deal with CUPE workers and actually invest in the number of education workers to make sure that every kid actually gets the supports they need in the classroom, whether it's an EA or an ECE or mental health supports. The government has just been refusing to step up and provide those supports for our kids.
Mm-hmm. I described it last week as a bit of a game of ping pong, and it just felt like the kids were the ones going back and forth. When you sort of head back and speak with the Premier and speak, at the legislature, what words will you share?
Well, the job is not done. There are still situations where there are 6 kids sharing one EA, kids with accessibility needs who are being told they can't come to school today because there's no EA available. There's teachers and principals who are filling in for custodian shortages. There's libraries that are closed. We need the government to come to the table and make investments in education to make sure that our kids finally get the supports they need to make up for the past few years. We know that the Financial Accountability Office said last week the government is underfunding education by $400 million this year alone. Mm-hmm. Enough is enough. Our kids paid a huge price for the pandemic. Let's give them the support they need now. Let's make those investments now.
And we know that there's some big discussions coming at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board regarding masking. How do you feel, Chandra, about potentially a school board undertaking masking mandates?
Well, the Chief Medical Officer of Health in Ontario was pretty clear that masks are recommended in order to bring down the spread of respiratory illnesses and to help keep kids out of hospitals. We know that CHEO is in an unprecedented crisis, 280% capacity in the pediatric ICU. It's unfortunate that the government has not been leading by example. Premier Ford has not been in the legislature wearing a mask, has not been out in public wearing a mask. And so when the government doesn't step up and provide that leadership, then it falls to our school boards to try to step in and fill that gap.
Do you think that this school board, the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, will set the pace for others in the province?
I think absolutely other school boards will be watching these discussions, and I hope that the government also takes the opportunity to encourage vaccinations for kids, both the flu shot and the COVID shot, paid sick days so that parents and teachers and education workers can stay home when they're sick, and that we do everything we can to protect these kids because, the stories that we're seeing come out of our hospitals are absolutely heartbreaking. Nobody wants to see these kids suffering and in pain like this, especially with the incredibly long waits for healthcare. So we should all be doing everything we can to protect them, and that includes the government.
Mm-hmm. You're 6 months into this mandate, Chandra. Any surprises for you as you have become the new MPP for Ottawa West Nepean? Is the honeymoon over, Chandra?
Well, it's definitely been quite the fall. It's been really disheartening to see that the really big issues that people across Ottawa West Nepean identified over the past year, affordability and cost of living, housing prices, the healthcare crisis, support for our kids, that not only is the government not prepared to act, they are just constantly making things worse. And so, my work is cut out for the next 3.5 years to keep raising these issues, to keep bringing the voices of my constituents to the government and making sure they cannot ignore the consequences of their own decisions.
Mm-hmm. And we know healthcare, obviously top of mind, and we know that the government has quite a surplus there. Very frustrating for a lot of parents waiting in, for example, in somewhere like CHEO, where 16, 17-year-olds are told, please go to adult health facilities as opposed to CHEO because they're so overrun with the little ones. I mean, this is Ontario, this is Canada. Hard to believe, Chandra, to be honest with you.
It's incredibly hard to believe. And while children's hospitals are rightly getting all the headlines right now, it's not just the children's hospitals. The Queensway Carleton Hospital in Ottawa West Nepean last weekend had more patients admitted in the ER and waiting for a bed in the hospital than they have beds in the ER, and they still had to see an additional 240 patients on top of that with no beds available. This is an absolute crisis, and yet last week the government had its fall economic update, and there wasn't a single additional dollar for health care. You know, this is an urgent crisis. We need action, and the government is busy saying we don't see a problem here.
It's certainly challenging. What kind of pressure do you think that the government needs? I mean, do they have to hear from every Ontarian to make a change here? It just seems like, you know, the Ford government, we think back to the election of June, and where we heard a lot about working for the little guy. It just seems in many ways it's the little guy that's being left behind. Do you think really the Premier and his ministers have to hear from every Ontarian?
Absolutely, and it is frustrating that it should be so. You would think that the facts would speak for themselves, and yet the government seems willingly blind to what's going on. But we saw with the Bill 28 and the notwithstanding clause, when parents came out and stood with education workers, with unions across the province and non-unionized workers, that together we were actually able to make the government back down and repeal the bill. So, you know, the voices of Ontarians standing in solidarity can move this government to act when they don't want to. And so it's incredibly important that people reach out to their MPP, reach out to the Premier, and share their experiences, share the consequences of the policy decisions that this government is making, and demand better from them.
How are you feeling about Bill 23, Chandra?
It's one of a few housing bills that this government has put forward that don't actually move the needle at all on providing Ontarians with adequate and affordable housing. Instead, it seems to just be a consolidation of power by the Premier. You know, one of my colleagues was saying it's almost like Doug Ford just wishes he were the mayor of Ontario. We keep taking away powers from democratically elected representatives at the city level and expanding the profits that developers are going to rake in. And at the end of the day, people in Ottawa, West Nepean won't have any more access to affordable housing than what they have now. And in fact, they will probably have less.
We know we have a new, speaking about mayors, we know we have a new mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, and a new council. What is your goal there with Mayor Sutcliffe and with, for instance, Lane Johnson representing, the college ward, just as an example there? How will you communicate? How will you build a relationship with these other officials?
Well, I'm very happy to have Lane Johnson. As a resident of College Ward, I feel like we have a voice back at the City Council table. I have a great relationship with Lane and with the other City Councillors in Ottawa, West Nepean. I've already had a conversation with Mark Sutcliffe since the election, and we both expressed a desire to work together on the priorities of Ottawa. I'm happy to bring the priorities of Ottawa to the legislature and be a voice here for the residents, and happy to be bringing information back from the legislature where I can to the city, working on common projects together, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to people which level of government it is. They just want to see the challenges in their life addressed. And so all levels of government need to be working together collaboratively, and that's what I intend to do.
Chandra, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Sam.
Chandra Pasman joining us, MPP for Ottawa West Nepean. Well, we touched on a lot of things there. We touched on that strike that was averted by CUPE. Those education workers are back in schools today, which means kids are back in school is where they should be. We have a big show for you today. We want you to lock it into Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
My name is Chase Nicholas. I am a Mi'kmaq hockey player. Growing up, I always remember my family talking about the Mi'kmaq as it created as a game of hockey. In grade 7, I did research on Mi'kmaq hockey sticks as the first sticks of the NHL. I found a Mi'kmaq hockey stick made in 1917, the same year the NHL was formed. I was surprised to find out the very stick I was holding was made by my great-great-grandfather, Alexander Cope. In 1934, an elder known as Old Joe Cope wrote a letter to the Halifax Herald claiming the Mi'kmaq created hockey. I found out later that I am a direct descendant of Old Joe Cope. There was a time when Mi'kmaq children were torn from their families and not allowed to speak their language, losing their words and stories. But the stories are coming back to us. Stepping on the ice, I take pride knowing the roots of the game of hockey stem from my ancestors in the Mi'kmaq Nation.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. MAD Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap. This week on Simply Cooking by Chef, simple salads that will last all week in the fridge, give you a burst of flavor, and will please a big crowd.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we have a very busy show for you today. We're going to be speaking with Tom D'Amico, Director of Education for Ottawa Catholic School Board. In a little bit, we're going to get his take on the fact that this strike has been averted. We're also going to speak with Sue Hutchinson. She is the president of Equifax Canada. We're going to be talking about some of the fraud that's being carried out in human trafficking victims' names. This is something that I really want to bring to your attention today. We're also, of course, going to speak today with Vicky Kiriakou. She's the Chief Administrative Officer with Ottawa Student Transportation Authority. It's that time of year when we start looking to find out if those school buses are running. So Vicky Kiriakou is going to spend time with us today. We're also going to spend time with Amanda Knox-Jetty. She's an author. And I'm sure you heard the devastating news out of the United States this week that 5 people were killed in the early hours at a club. And it is really been insinuated and also inferred that there is a hate crime being committed here against the LGBTQ community. So we're going to speak with Amanda about that. We're also going to speak with Franco Terezano, and he is the federal director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation regarding 24 Sussex and the official residence and really what that's going to mean. That's going to be a really interesting discussion there. Have you ever been to 24 Sussex?
I have not.
You will be very surprised what that looks like, Noah. You would be very, very surprised. It's beautiful, but it's very outdated because, of course, people haven't kept it up. Prime ministers haven't kept it up because they didn't want to be the ones to spend the money to do so.
Right.
And so it's very surprising. And it's very chilly. You can ask, I think it was Mrs. Harper, Stephen Harper's wife, that said it was very, very chilly there because the way that the heating was done, it wasn't very, very well done.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we'll be speaking about that with Franco in a little bit. We're also going to be having lunch today. And of course, Michelle Coates-Mather is going to join us. She's the founder of Presence and Influence. And Christina Spencer, a regular here on City News. She's the editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen. She's going to be spending time with us as well today. We're going to be talking about those top news stories of the day, which includes what's happening on Twitter. And I have to ask you, what is happening on Twitter? It is really wild to watch what Elon Musk is doing there. So we're going to be speaking a little bit about that. We're going to talk about Bill 23 as well, that housing bill that I spoke a little bit earlier with Chandra Pasma about today. We're also going to be speaking about the state of healthcare in this province. It really is quite shocking what's happening. We're also going to be talking about travel this winter. And ask them if they're going to travel, and if they are, where are they going to go? We're going to be talking about that, and we've got some great guests for you as well on the business lunch. Kathy McCallion's going to join us from Ross Video and talk about the fact that they have been voted a top place to work, which is great. So Kathy McCallion's going to spend some time with us, and right now spending some time with me, I'm very lucky, is Mark Day, our news director here at City News. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. It's a busy news day already, and it's only Monday.
I know, it's only Monday. That's the way it is around here as we get set for the holidays. And I have some great news about the holidays.
Okay, tell me.
And how we can raise some money with the Snowsuit Fund.
Okay, tell me all the deets.
So this is new. This winter, the Snowsuit Fund, of course, we need everyone's help because all kids deserve to have a snowsuit for our cold Ottawa winters.
Sure.
So City News are presenting the Snowsuit Fund 50/50.
Oh, wow.
This year. So so you can get your tickets to win starting at $10. They go increments after that to keep a kid warm this winter. And all you have to do is go to our website. This will all be up next week. All this information. We'll have a number where you can text as well. Be able to text money and then get that information back. And the more money we raise, the more money the Snowsuit Fund gets, of course. And that means for you too. So the Snowsuit Fund 50/50 will kick off coming up in 2023 with a full whack of cash. That's the way we like to say it. So the jackpot will start at $10,000.
Amazing.
And then the tickets are just $10. And it goes up after that in increments.
Wow.
So we're really excited to help out the Snowsuit Fund.
For sure. And they've been on a lot with us here on City News. They've been on An Hour to Give as well over the years.
That's right.
And, over 16,000 kids in our community need a snowsuit. And I always picture Canadian Tire Centre.
Oh, right,
and picture somebody sitting in every seat, and pretty much every seat would be filled with somebody looking for a snowsuit this year. So a really important cause for sure.
Yeah, it is. And so that's going to be very nice to be a part of that. Last year with our stations here, the Rock Station and with KISS, she raised over $800,000.
It was wild.
So to be able to split that money and give it to a winner and then to help out the Snowsuit Fund.
Wow.
And we're already seeing how cold it is in these Ottawa winters. And it's going to be cold this week with that wind chill. And we know how important children are. So it'll be great. So we'll have more details coming up next week with the official launch of that as we get set to head into 2023.
Oh, that's fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing about that. It certainly has been busy in our newsroom. I mean, we have the Emergencies Act going on. We obviously were watching very closely about the CUPE strike. That has been averted, as we know. Tom D'Amico is going to come up right after the 10:30 news today and just talk about what the impact is going to be and has been to the Ottawa Catholic School Board. So Tom D'Amico, of course, Director of Education there, is going to spend some time with us. And then there's been just, obviously following what's happening in healthcare, following what's happening at CHEO. It really has been a busy time here.
It has been a busy time, and staying on top of those stories, and it's not like CUPE. This whole story with CUPE and the government doesn't go away because they come up with that tentative agreement last night. It still has to go to the members to vote, and we'll have to wait and see what the results of that vote will be. And looking at the hospitals and looking at, with CHEO and the situation they're dealing with 200% raise in terms of patients and the ICU and overloaded and moving patients as well. It's, you think of parents and what they're dealing with these days. I know my kids have been just sick at home and back to school and then sick again. And it's just one of those winters or those falls where you just, you take each day at a time because you just don't know what they'll be sick with tomorrow.
100%.
And it doesn't take much, a sore throat or a cough or just a stuffy nose. It's you have to keep the kids home. So I feel for those parents who are going through that, and especially not knowing if there was going to be school or not today.
Right, and I'm. Well, let's just put it this way. My daughter's old enough she could stay at home by herself.
Right.
But I do feel for parents that aren't of that, age where they can't leave their kids. Because I would think about what it would mean for me here. You would have to find a fill-in for me. I mean, you know what I mean? And every parent is dealing with something different. I think about people that are parents and they're working in the police force or they're in healthcare, places that are already tapped out, feeling the pressure. To add that extra pressure on top of it. And I was listening and I was driving and listening to City News and okay, we've been averted, right?
Right,
and, So the next call was to my daughter, who was kind of hoping she was going to have one day. But I told her, she's like, are you serious, Mom? So definitely parents were watching very, very closely to see what was going to happen. So
that story too, and the Emergencies Act and the inquiry which is going on now, this is a big week too.
Huge.
With the federal government and, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, expected to speak as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that news comes from the inquiry. But I've been watching every day, as I'm sure a lot of people who love news and follow along, and someone who has covered that story very closely. So, I don't know if everyone's going to get the answers they want, but at least it's certainly transparent for people to be able to watch and to hear what's going on every day. Our Parliament Hill Bureau Chief Cormac McSweeney is covering that story, and will be following it all day for us and all week, as he has been since it started.
And we'll check in with Cormac as well as the week progresses. We'll definitely, as soon as we hear any news about, for instance, the Prime Minister testifying of that, we'll make sure to tap into that as well. So you'll want to stay with us here on City News. Thanks so much to our news director, Mark Day, for joining us. Lock it in, everybody.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, November 21st. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is -4 and feels like -11. In Smiths Falls, it is -3 and feels like -8. And here's what's making news this hour. The Public Order Emergency Commission is in its final week of hearings, with a panel of high-profile witnesses taking the stand to give testimony. We're hearing from the head of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, along with CISA's Deputy Director of Operations and the Executive Director of its Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center. More than 60 witnesses have already testified about the decision to declare a federal emergency as demonstrators protesting COVID-19 restrictions blockaded downtown Ottawa and Canada-US border crossings. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to testify before the hearings end on Friday. The deadline to weigh in on the mask mandate in our local public school is at noon today. The Ottawa Cartland District School Board will meet tomorrow evening to debate whether students and staff will be required to wear masks while on school premises. They'll hear from the top doctor in the city, Dr. Vera Etches, and the Chief of Staff at CHIO, Dr. Linda Sampson. The OCDSB meeting is scheduled for 6:30 tomorrow. One 46-year-old man is facing multiple child luring charges after a search warrant was conducted at his residence. Richard Carroll's charges include luring a person under 16 by means of telecommunications, invitation to sexual touching, and distribution of child pornography. Carroll is in OPP custody. Anyone with information regarding the investigation is asked to contact the OPP. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, everybody's back in the classroom at the Ottawa Catholic School Board. And, well, this time yesterday, we didn't know if that was going to be the case or not. And I know holding their breath were parents, education workers, and even some students. Some students would have liked one day off, but that's okay. Tom D'Amico is here, and I know he was holding his breath as well. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So we got the news, I heard it here on City News around 5:30 last night, that the strike had been averted. What were your initial thoughts, Tom?
Well, certainly pleased for our families, many families like yours, Sam, across the city that have children. We really wanted them in person all week. So I know it was a relief for many parents and students Sunday night when they waited for that news. I'm also pleased for our staff, since it was very stressful for our CUPE staff, also for their colleagues at each of our schools. They want to be supportive of them. At the same time, they knew they had a legal obligation to be at work, provide instructions for students. So overall, we're really pleased. We're happy to see everyone back, and right now we'll let the process for negotiations continue as is needed.
Because we know those members, those CUPE members have to vote still on this decision. So there is still a little bit of a process left, Tom.
Yeah, it's a very complicated process. CUPE still is in a legal strike position. We don't have a ratified agreement, but we're getting closer to having an agreed upon central term. So what has to happen next is the members, the CUPE members and all 65 boards that have CUPE staff, they will see the tentative collective agreement. They will decide whether or not to ratify it. We need a majority of the boards from the CUPE side, and then the same agreement will go to all the school boards, and the Board of Trustees also have to ratify. So if between all the boards and the CUPE members, both sides agree to ratify, then we'll have central terms. They're still not without a formal contract at that point. We'll then move to local negotiations, and once the local negotiations are completed, then there is a formal agreement.
Wow, so there is still lots to go through. When would you expect this to be done, Tom, or is that just a sort of navel-gazing?
Well, my understanding is as soon as this Wednesday, CUPE staff will start to gather to look at the terms, and they'll decide on their vote. We have not received the formal agreement yet from the Catholic Trustees Association. We're hoping to see that today. Once boards receive that, it'll then go to a board meeting where the Board of Trustees in a closed meeting would decide if they're ratifying or not.
Certainly very, very busy time. How has it been for students? Are you hearing from any of your staff that students have been affected during this time with just the upheaval of it all?
Yeah, it's certainly tough on students. They do like the odd day off here and there for snow days, but on a regular basis, they want to be at school to learn, to socialize, to experience everything that schools have to offer, like extracurriculars and arts and sports. And they just didn't know from day to day or week to week if that was going to continue. So they were missing that routine, which we know from the pandemic is so important for their overall mental health and well-being. The group that I'm also very concerned but also relieved about is our students with special special needs, the ones that certainly get support on a regular basis from our wonderful educational assistants, they need them to access the curriculum. So for that, some small group of our students, remote learning was not going to work. And so I'm really pleased that they're back and they'll have the support of the caring adults they need in each of our schools.
For sure. Because I think kids understand snow day, right, Tom? But it is really difficult to explain, and even some adults, to explain what a strike is like, contract negotiations, all of the terms that go along with that. It is hard for kids to comprehend what that all means.
Yes, I would agree, especially for the younger students. They're relying on their parents to explain the process, and sometimes they feel that if school is close to them, that's something about the students, and we need to explain that, unfortunately, they don't get to go to school on some days, but it really is about the adults trying to work out a legal process that they're entitled to. That it is a legal process in bargaining, but it's hard for young students especially to understand that. And we know they're excited when they get back to school, and the educators in the schools are excited to see them as well. So that's a positive, that they're really happy when they get to go to school and see their friends and see their educators.
And it has been difficult for parents and teachers over the last number of years to explain to kids how the world has changed. I mean, even just I remember sitting down and sort of trying to explain, because I was still learning what this pandemic was going to mean, right? And we were told, we just have to, stay calm for a couple of weeks and it's all going to be over. And now we're close to 3 years into this thing. So it has been challenging for us to sort of chat with our kids about all of this. And now we're talking about other school boards, the Ottawa Carleton District School Board talking about masking mandates. We know that big meeting is taking place. What will that mean for the Ottawa Catholic School Board, Tom? Will you potentially follow suit?
Well, in terms of masks, certainly for our school board, we've taken the approach since the beginning of the pandemic that education is our key mandate, and public health decisions we would defer to Ottawa Public Health and their discussions with the Chief Medical Officer from Ontario. So while they are strongly recommending masks at this point, neither Ottawa Public Health or the provincially have mandated masks, so we will follow that direction. So that's the approach our board is taking. We certainly are strongly encouraging people to wear masks, but we know that if we were to come up with a policy that's backed by our trustees but not backed by public health, it would be extremely difficult to enforce, and the outcomes might be worse than what we're trying to solve.
And we know that you all work together, and I know you have one dedicated staff person, and her name is slipping my mind right now, but that works with all of the other school boards as well as with Ottawa Public Health that have been meeting on an ongoing basis. So do you feel pressure at all, though, to do what the other boards are doing, Tom?
Well, we do work together, and we work together well. Mary Donaghy is our Associate Director of Education, and she sits on the public health table. So they were meeting weekly during the pandemic. I believe now it's bi-weekly. So we always listen to what's happening in each board, but our governance structure is different in that we have our own set of trustees, as do the French boards and Ottawa Public Board. So we do have some differences in decisions that we make, and that's respectful of choice for both parents and for students and for staff. So we don't always come out with the same conclusion, and this would be currently one of those examples. We did get a legal opinion last year that we provided to our chair, Mark Mullen. The legal opinion we received at the time was that the Minister of Education had given a position that trustees don't have the legal authority to reinstate masks when the government lifted this restriction. We also heard loudly from our Principals Association that if our trustees were to pass a mask mandate, it would be impossible for our principals to enforce that. We have 47,000 students, so if only 20% of them decided not to wear masks, if there was a policy, we're dealing with close to 10,000 kids who would not be wearing masks, and every one of those would need meetings with parents, meeting with students, possible suspensions or exclusions, appeals. Similarly, we have 5,000 staff. If you have 20% that choose not to follow the rule because they believe that it's not backed by public health, that'd be 1,000 staff members that we would need to have meetings with, have appeals from the local unions, and it's just not something that's going to benefit, in our view, benefit students academically. It's going to be more disruptive. And a time when we're already short-staffed due to different illnesses and other reasons, we don't have a replacement pool for some of those teachers and educators if they're away. So we don't want to further disadvantage our students not being able to come to school.
Appreciate that explanation, Tom. Let's talk a little bit about, the teacher in terms of supply teacher. I always refer to them as supply teacher because I'm really old, Tom, but I know you have a better name for it now. But are you struggling to find those teachers to replace teachers that are off sick, for instance?
The proper term is occasional teachers.
Right.
So we certainly have challenges this year, as we did the last 2 years. We've not had to close any schools because of a shortage of staff, but I do know it's the number one issue that our principals face every day going into school. They are waiting to find out what they're short in terms of whether it's teachers or educational assistants or early childhood educators, caretakers. We're short in most areas in education. So on a day-to-day basis, they are really scrambling to cover to make sure that every class has an adult supervisor. We're continuing to find ways to make sure that we have greater numbers of people we can call upon to help out. So it definitely has been a challenge during the pandemic, but it's not just pandemic related. This started earlier than the pandemic with less students being admitted into Teachers College for the teacher program, perhaps less interest in some of the other jobs or more competition for people to find other employment. So it remains a challenge right across the province, and we're certainly part of that challenge. And we're proud of the work our principals continue to do, and vice principals and our office administrators, to fill those holes. And we're doing our best to provide quality education to all of our students.
Tom, how long have you been the Director of Education for the Ottawa Catholic School Board?
This is my third year as director, and prior to that I was 5 years as the associate director, so 8 years in the directorate.
It's been quite an 8 years.
Well, it's very rewarding, Sam. So we're always proud of what happens in the Ottawa Catholic School Board. There's so many good things that happen. So there are lots of challenges, and that's why we're here. We're here to deal with the challenges, and once we're done with one challenge, we get ready for whatever the next one that comes. And you have to have a positive outlook. You're certainly reinforced every day by the great things that you see happening in the school. So when you walk through a class and you see kindergarten smiling, or you see grade 1s or 2s working on their Advent projects right now, getting ready for Christmas, all kinds of social justice activities. It's a great board, and there's great things happening.
Well, I will say you've always been really great about coming on. Lots of really great communications that comes from the board. So from a parent's perspective, and a host of a talk show, you've been very good, very transparent with us, which is really helpful for parents, because I think sometimes it just feels, especially when you're one of 47,000, that you can sometimes get lost in that, and you've been very good about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The message isn't always one that parents want to hear from an individual basis, and we have to deal with the system as a whole. But certainly we want people to understand the decisions we make, even if they may not agree with all of them. They understand why we're doing certain things, and that we're always trying to do things in the best interest of our students and supportive of our staff.
Thank you so much, Tom. We're happy that the strike has been averted, and we're going to be watching this story very closely. As you mentioned earlier, it isn't over, right? We need to watch this closely. Thank you so much, Tom.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Have a great day.
You too. Director of Education for the Ottawa Catholic School Board. That's Tom D'Amico, talking about lots of different subjects there, which are top of mind for students and parents and teachers, education workers. We appreciate his time very much today. When we come back, we're going to speak with the president of Equifax Canada. We're talking about something a little bit different than your credit score, and that is fraud that's being carried out in the names of victims of human trafficking. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll tell you about one of the largest local markets, and it's taking place next week at the NAC, so we'll have that for you. We'll also tell you about the Style Guys. They have some great holiday glam entertaining ideas, so if you want to bring things up a notch, and also the Caring and Sharing Exchange. Each and every year, they have their Christmas hamper program. We'll tell you how you can get involved, all that and more on Monday.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
What is it? Anxiety disorder. Depression.
Clear. PTSD.
1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds and bring hope to those in need.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Over the last couple of years, I have put a lot of focus on human trafficking, learning about what's happening in our city, in our province, across Canada. It is shocking, the number of cases of human trafficking that's happening. And there are all different types of human trafficking. We wanted to speak today with Sue Hutchinson, president of Equifax Canada. Hi, Sue.
Hi there, Sam. How are you?
Good. Sue, when I think about chatting with you, I think, well, my credit score and all the things we talk to Equifax about on a regular basis, which have been amazing. Today's discussion is so much different because we're really talking about fraud being carried out in human trafficking victims' names. I mean, walk me through how this even came to your attention.
Yeah, it's a really, horrifying, I think, and important issue. But we learned of the proposed bill by MVP Collard, and we're quite interested in seeing how we could support. And essentially, it's an amendment to the Consumer Reporting Act, and it really allows for this new concept of coerced debt. So this is debt when a debtor is under the control of human traffickers and they're really financially exploited. And so we're really interested in supporting the proposed legislation, which effectively provides a process where we can remove any debt that's occurred during really captivity.
It is just absolutely tragic, Sue. I mean, when you think about all of the different ways people have gone through, being human trafficked, and we talk a lot with Cynthia Bland from Voices Found about human trafficking, and it's amazing to me. And this is happening in communities like Orleans and Canada and Barrhaven. I mean, I think we have this vision of where this happens, but it's in our communities. And what you just pointed out, it really is horrific.
It's shocking. It's really hard to think about. I'm with you, Sam. It's really one of those things that you don't think happens, but it is in our community. So, this is I think a small part of what Equifax Canada can do to support. Our mission is really helping people live their financial best, and the problem is that, when debt's incurred and when survivors try to rebuild their life, they're chased by collection agencies. They're, given the information that, in fact, their name and ID have been used to take out often student loans and credit cards. And so not only are they recovering from, a horrific, had to endure a horrific time in their life, their financial kind of recovery is also impacted.
And so I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. If somebody has been through the human trafficking world, and then they have recovered from it, somehow gotten themselves out, and if they have had their credit ruined because of this, to your point, credit cards and loans and all of those types of things, then there will be some help for them.
Exactly. So it's, the changes, if the bill passes as proposed, it'll do really three things. It'll prohibit the credit bureaus from including any of these so-called coerced debts on their credit reports. And it'll also prohibit the collection or attempts to collect on these coerced debts by collection agencies, which may or may not be the financial institutions directly, but they may be agencies and companies working on lenders' behalf. And then it will also prohibit financial institutions and entities, including a creditor who's owed a coerced debt, from taking the existence of a coerced debt into consideration, when determining whether to lend money to them. So in other words, it shouldn't impact their credit rating or ability to take out additional loans, credit cards, etc.
And Sue, where are we with this bill? What position are we in right now?
So it was proposed in the House, I think, the day before yesterday. And it was a wonderful kind of non-partisan bill in that 4 political parties in Ontario all supported it. So it will go through the regular process, but it appeared that there was really good support. So I can't imagine there would be tons of changes, but that will go through the regular kind of government legislative process.
When you think about all the different files that you have on your desk, how important was this one for you, Sue?
Well, I have to say we do a lot of, I'm lucky enough to work for a company where we make an impact. We can make an impact. So we've been working on a lot of big issues like this that are around public policy. So improving access to credit for certain segments of the population, for example, that don't necessarily fit into our traditional scoring models, like young people, like new Canadians, people that have gone through maybe life events where their credit has been bruised. So we're starting to look at, alternative data that can inform better. So it's a lot of, wonderful things we can do to help and support. Of course, we don't make credit decisions, but we provide a lot of data and analytics to the lenders that do.
Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting topic. I mean, I thought that I sort of knew a lot about human trafficking, and I knew there was always a financial piece. I mean, we heard, as I mentioned, from someone that's leading an organization trying to help victims of human trafficking, that the person that, was being so cruel to this particular person would make her go to the bank account and just basically withdraw her money on a regular basis as it was coming in. This is somebody that, if you can believe it, Sue was still working. Right. And they were just insist that she does some. So basically she was losing her home. She was losing everything. So it really is something we have to be cautious of.
It is hard to believe. I mean, the story, there was a survivor actually at the reading of the proposed bill, and she was so brave and told her story. And when she escaped after, I think, several years, it was very surprising for her to find that she had all this debt, and she had collection agencies calling her, and again, to add such difficult times after what she'd experienced, it's just tremendous. So hopefully this will pass as is, and there'll be some relief so that none of these things will be included on their records.
And I think when people think about Equifax, that we do think about credit reports. What's the best way, Sue, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, hey, I want to check my credit report, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to myequifax.ca. and you'll be able to see your credit report and your score there. And there's quite a bit of information on our website. So lots of, we try to do a lot of education on financial literacy and why credit scores are important. We also have a program called Equifax Educate. So we're out in the community helping, different groups learn about what is your credit score, why is it important, and how can you improve it over time.
Really appreciate your time today, Sue. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Sue Hutchinson joining us, president of Equifax Canada, was such an important topic there, and it's nice to see that all four parties of the Ontario government came together and realized the importance of this bill. So we'll be watching that story very closely as well. We're going to be speaking with the president and CEO of the Children's Healthcare Canada about the overwhelmed healthcare system. I mean, this is not a surprise to you. We know we've been hearing this for a number of weeks by people like Alex Munter, the president and CEO of CHEO. We've been hearing it from a number of healthcare professionals in this community, how overwhelmed they are. Nurses are leaving at an alarming rate, more people walking through the door, ERs being shut down. So it's no surprise that we're going to be having this conversation today with the president and CEO of the Children's Healthcare Canada organization. So we're going to be speaking about that a little bit later. And then, of course, we always have fun on Lunch with Sam between 12 and 12:30. We're going to be talking about some of those important news topics of the day. Michelle Coates-Mather is going to join us, as well as Christina Spencer. We're also going to be speaking today with Amanda Knox-Jetty. She's an author. We're going to be speaking about the hate crime that took place in the United States this past weekend. We hope you stay with us here on City News. Lock it in, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This week on Simply Cooking by Chef, simple salads that will last all week in the fridge, give you a burst of flavor, and will please a big crowd.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hi
everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, November 21st. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is -4 and feels like -11. In Smiths Falls, it's at -3 and feels like -8. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa's new mayor is heading to Queen's Park tomorrow to discuss city priorities and building a good relationship with the Premier. City News reporter Chris Curry has the details on what some councillors would like to see.
The OC Transpo deficit is a big one for Councillor David Brown of West Carleton March.
Right now we're looking at least an $85 million funding deficit with OC Transpo, and that's going to hit the city's finances across the board.
Tim Tierney agrees and says one of his big personal ward priorities in Beacon Hill, Searville is on the roads.
I heard time and again, and being chair of Transportation Committee, we always want more roads, and that is something I certainly heard at the door quite a bit.
That infrastructure is something the suburban and rural councillors can both agree on and say it's time for the city to get back to the basics. Snow clearing, fixing roads, and things like that. Chris Curry's City News.
The weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley. Here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have some flurries at times. Even a couple of centimeters could accumulate. A gusty wind today out of the south-southwest will climb to 2 degrees for the guaranteed high, -9 for the low. More flurries at times tonight. And then we'll start with a little bit of sunshine tomorrow. Increasing cloud, the high about 0. For today, the guaranteed high +2.
City News time is 11:01. The deadline to weigh in on the mask mandate in our local public schools is at noon today. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board will meet tomorrow evening to debate whether students and staff will be required to wear masks while on school premises. They'll hear from the top doctor in the city, Dr. Vera Etches, and the Chief of Staff at CHIO, Dr. Linda Sampson. Chandra Pasma is the MPP for Ottawa West Nepean. She tells the Sam Laprade show, now is the time to do everything we can to protect vulnerable Ontarians and kids, even if it requires enforcing a mask mandate.
The Chief Medical Officer of Health in Ontario was pretty clear that masks are recommended in order to bring down the spread of respiratory illnesses and to help keep kids out of hospitals. We know that CHIO is in an unprecedented crisis, 280% capacity in the pediatric ICU.
And the OCDSB meeting is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. A local health unit is reporting a child's death from flu. Lead Granville Lanark Health says a child in the region who had flu has died. No identifying information such as the gender or the age of the child has been released, and health units are advising people to get their flu shots this season. Anyone over the age of 6 months is eligible, and the shot this year seems to be effective in preventing severe symptoms. Public Health Canada said just last week the country is in a flu epidemic. Officials with Canada's spy agency are now testifying at the inquiry into the Emergencies Act. It's kick-starting the final and most anticipated week of witnesses of this portion of the inquiry. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has the story.
At this moment, we're hearing from 3 officials of our spy agency, CSIS, who are all appearing as a panel. Michelle Tessier, Deputy Director of Operations with the agency, says there are a lot of complexities when discussing matters of ideologically motivated violent extremism.
It's very difficult to define when it meets a CSIS threshold, when it meets the threshold of terrorism. And that is something that we share internationally when we're talking with our partners, because it is a complex threat.
Now, the head of the agency believed the convoy did not constitute a threat to Canada's security under Section 2 of the CSIS Act, but he does allow for a broader definition of what national security threat is. We did already hear from the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister that they did take a broader interpretation of that. A portion of the CSIS testimony has already been held behind closed doors because it deals with top secret information. Later today, we should be hearing from Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, certainly parents and children are having such a challenging time right now when it comes to healthcare, but it goes even deeper than that. We wanted to get some information today from Emily Gruenwald, President and CEO of the Children's Healthcare Canada organization. How are you, Emily?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. I mean, overwhelmed healthcare system is feeling like a bit of an understatement right now when we're hearing about, children that are 16, 17 being asked to go to adult hospitals because of the children's hospitals being overwhelmed. What are you hearing, Emily?
Well, what we're hearing and what we're seeing is very consistent with what you just identified in terms of the Ottawa context, but it's really happening across the country. So, whether it's the IWK Children's Hospital in Halifax, whether it's Sick Kids in Toronto, CHEO in Ottawa, or Alberta Children's Hospital out in Calgary, all of our hospitals are seeing unprecedented volumes of very sick children right now, the majority of whom are under the age of 2.
That's hard to hear as somebody. I mean, my daughter's just about 15 now, but it just feels like an eye blink ago that she was that age, and they're just so vulnerable at that age, and I think parents kind of struggle, Emily, because you wonder, is my kid as sick as I think they are, or am I just being a nervous parent? Right? It can be a struggle for sure.
Yeah, you're right. When our kids are sick, it takes all of our time and attention, doesn't it? And I think one of the challenges that families are experiencing right now is they're really struggling with some of those frontline access points to get that advice that they're looking for in the moment. So we're, in addition to the crowding that we're seeing in our children's hospitals, we know our primary care systems are stretched to the limit as well. And so those are trusted partners in our children's care that aren't available. And then, of course, our parents turn to community pharmacies, and they find some of those over-the-counter drugs that we all rely on aren't on the shelf in the same way that they used to be. So, what that's resulting in is a number of really anxious parents seeking out emergency department services because they don't know where else to turn.
Sounds like the perfect storm, Emily.
It really is. And, others have spoken about, this being an overnight crisis in pediatrics, but it's really been decades in the making. Our children's healthcare systems across the country are undersized compared to a growing number of children in use in this country. And so Children's Healthcare Canada and many other children's organizations are calling on our governments to right-size children's healthcare systems, whether that's the infrastructure to support their needs, whether it's a pipeline of really specialized healthcare providers who are accessible, or whether it's the availability of essential medicines on the shelves at other pharmacies.
Mm-hmm. And I can't help but, sort of think about nurses as well, because that's been a really big part of the story. We've had countless conversations with Dr. Doris Grinspun, the president and CEO of the Ontario Registered Nurses Association, about the lack of nurses and all the complications that going around nurses right now. How big of a challenge is the nurses piece here?
Oh, it's huge, huge. The very specialized nurses that care for our kids in children's hospitals, we are short-numbered there as well. Across the country, the story is consistent. There's so many different members of the healthcare team that are in short supply. I think CHEO, our children's hospital down the street in Ottawa right now, has upwards of 400 vacancies for healthcare providers and others on the healthcare team. So, the challenge with nursing pipeline is real, but it also extends to all sorts of other different providers, whether those are physicians, social workers, physiotherapists, psychologists, you name it.
Wow, that number's shocking, Emily.
It is shocking, and that's one center. So when we think about the impact across the country and what we need to do to rebuild to meet the needs of kids today, but also into the future, it can be overwhelming. But we need to get started, and there's lots of different opportunities to think about, how we right-size that healthcare workforce for kids.
And what makes children's healthcare so different from adult healthcare? I remember somebody saying to me, maybe a couple of decades ago, why do we need a children's hospital when we have all these big hospitals? What is the difference there? I mean, aside from what we would normally think were, maybe smaller equipment, but other than that, why the difference?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So, children are not just tiny adults. The way that their bodies grow and develop over such a short period of time means we have a very limited window to maximize their health outcomes, not only today, but also for the future. There's lots of great examples where we know that investments in children's health and well-being today can make lifelong impacts for them. It reduces their health system utilization in the long term. It means they grow up to be healthy and well, members of our economy and members of our community. And so there's lots of great reasons why it's important for us to think about how do we set kids up for success in those early years that we know are so fundamental in terms of determining their overall health and well-being.
Such an important message. What message do you have for parents today, Emily, that, some of them might be really worried and thinking, oh, geez, what if something does happen to little Susie or little Johnny? I can't take them to the hospital. I mean, that's not the case.
No, I mean, I think the really important message is if your child is very sick, our children's hospitals have the capacity to meet your needs. The most critically ill children are absolutely being seen in a timely fashion by hospitals across the country. So absolutely don't hesitate to seek out that care if you're really worried about your child and youth. I think more broadly, we need to think about, let's make a plan for Canada's children. We don't have a pan-Canadian strategy that speaks to how we want to prioritize children, what sort of targets we want to set for their health and their well-being. And as a result, what we've seen is Canada falling further and further behind in terms of children's health outcomes. So if we look at, there's a report issued by UNICEF Canada. It looks at the health of Canada's kids in comparison to others. Our children's physical health right now is ranked 30th of 38 countries, and their mental health is ranked 31st out of 38 countries. That's a failing grade, and I think it's time that we make children a priority in this country. We set a plan because we know we can do better.
Well, that's shocking to me. I mean, when I think about healthcare in this country, I mean, we often, sort of boast about the fact that we have great healthcare and the plans that we have to make sure that every Canadian is cared for. But if we're falling that low on lists of what we're doing for our children, that we're not succeeding at all.
We're certainly not, and I think you're right. It does come as a surprise to many of us, but it is the reality that we face and the challenge that we face, and so that's why organizations like mine are calling on both the provincial governments as well as the federal government to make children a priority. Yesterday was National Children's Day, and there's just so much more we have to do to protect children's rights, but also to optimize their health.
One group of people that I've talked about a lot, especially when the pandemic hit, are the healthcare workers and their own mental health and their health, because if they're not healthy, they can't care for us, and the cycle continues. Do you ever sort of address that issue in terms of Children's Healthcare Canada?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So our healthcare workers are heroes. They are showing up every day under the most challenging of circumstances. Overwhelmingly seeing just numbers of children and the acuity of their illnesses that they're presenting with. And it really is taking a toll on our health workforce. And that's leading to some of the challenges that we're seeing in terms of shortages of health professionals. They're choosing to step away because it's a lot. And the feeling, the moral distress that they're experiencing is significant. So, as much as we need to be thinking about and creating a plan for Canada's kids, we also need to be thinking about how do we rebuild this workforce and make sure that they're able to participate in healthcare and to be there for Canada's kids. They are just doing such an extraordinary job.
Mm-hmm. Emily, let's stay in touch, okay? Because I'm hoping that we see some changes for the better here, and I'd love to follow this story closely with you, okay?
You bet.
Emily Grunwald joining us, President and CEO of Children's Healthcare Canada. Appreciate all the great information there. Like I mentioned, we have a very busy show for you today. Thinking about kids on the other side of it all is thinking about them heading to school. Vicky Kiriakou, Chief Administrative Officer with the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority, is my guest after the break. It's not just about snow days, folks. We're going to talk with Vicky when we come back. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I did it. I need it.
A hero gave it.
and I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
Jean-Marie! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Get out to the river. Get up.
We can't leave everything. Careful. Don't fall.
Come on. We have to hurry.
I'm afraid. There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry, hurry.
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for sparks.
His hair's on fire.
Keep the hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Bipolar disorder.
Substance addiction.
Bulimia.
OCD. Want to swap?
1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's that time of year where we wake up really early in the morning and we wake up with Rob Snow to find out, are the kids heading to school or not on a school bus? Vicky Kiriakou is at the head of it all as the Chief Administrative Officer for the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Vicky. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Vicky. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's so great to get connected. We wanted to have a discussion with you. Of course, it's that time of year, Vicky, where we wonder, are the school buses running or not? And we, of course, always want those school buses running, but sometimes the weather says otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. We're very concerned about weather these days, and it seems to start earlier and earlier and last longer and longer.
It is very, very challenging. And how is it for you, Vicky, to make those decisions? What goes into deciding whether it's a snow day or not?
Well, first we start looking at our weather reports the night before. We start tracking what kind of precipitation might be coming our way, what the rate of precipitation might be, how much total precipitation, and at what time of the day. And then we see if the city will have enough time or resources to clear the snow so that we can operate our vehicles safely.
Mm-hmm. Such an important time of year, of course, to always be on top of it all. And those drivers, you know, those are the heroes every day, Vicky, that gets those kids to school, but especially on those days where the weather is not 100%. And, you know, let's say they're driving them home and we got an unexpected snowfall, right? We have to make sure to always watch out for those school buses.
That's right. And definitely for parents and kids to stay away from the curbs and not to rush to the bus, you know, give everybody a chance to slow down and come to a full stop and hang on to those the handlebar when you go up the stairs because everything's slippery. Mm-hmm. There are so many different aspects of safety when you start looking at taking the bus in the wintertime.
What kind of training do the bus drivers receive, Vicky, so that they are prepared for this kind of Canadian winter?
The training really it sort of looks at some of the defensive driving techniques that they can use. And certainly it depends on the area of town that you are going to be driving in as a bus driver. Those who are driving out in the rural areas are often reminded, even daily, to stay away from the edge of the road, because we know as soon as the pavement sort of drops off, that soft shoulder can just, trap one wheel, and now we've got a situation where we have to bring in a spare bus. So it is very much about being aware of the road conditions and taking it slow, and that can lead to delays. And I know a lot of parents are like, oh, my bus is delayed again. But at the end of the day, it is for the safety of the kids who are on the bus and waiting at bus stops.
Such an important conversation. And I know we've had endless conversations about the fact that you are still needing those bus drivers. Are you still needing them, Vicki?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is just the new way that we're going to have to do our recruiting, constantly getting the message out there, promoting our driveyellow.ca website that explains everything that has to do with being a bus driver, how to apply, which operators are looking for van drivers and yellow bus drivers, and in different areas of town. There's some videos there that explain what the bus driving experience is like from actual bus drivers.
Mm-hmm. Such an important piece. And is it still, we can still go to driveyellow.ca?
Absolutely. That's a live website anytime. And then if you'd like some information about our weather or inclement weather process, how we figure out when there's going to be a snow day, or sometimes it's a freezing rain day, you just go to ottawaschoolbus.ca and check out our page on the weather.
Mm-hmm. I suspect this isn't the first time we're going to be chatting during this chilly winter. Vicki, I think we're going to be chatting a lot. I'm hoping that everybody gets to school safely and home again, and I know you want the same.
Absolutely. Keep an eye out on the media. Sign up for our email notifications, and just stay on top of all of our messaging. By 6 a.m. in the morning is when we would actually have that message out to parents so that they can make alternate arrangements. Often schools are open, so it just means, they have to make a different decision of how to get their kids to school that day.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Vicki.
Take care.
Vicki Kiriakou spending time with us today, Chief Administrative Officer for the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority. Appreciate her time. We wanted to also spend some time today with Amanda Jetty-Knox, and she is an author. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And I know you and I both woke up to the devastating news out of Colorado Springs that 5 people were killed, 18 injured in a shooting at Club Q. We understand this was directed towards the LGBTQ plus community. Amanda, how did that affect your heart?
It's heavy. It's really heavy. And I've been checking in on a lot of people right now because it's heavy for them, too. It is one of those things that is, I guess, horrible, and yet, given the climate for hate right now, in my mind, not surprising.
Mm-hmm. And Amanda, tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote.
I wrote a book called Love Lives Here, a story of thriving in a transgender family. It was out in 2019, and it tells the story of my family's journey through 2 different transitions. First, our middle child, who was 11 at the time, came out as transgender, and a year and a half later, my partner, my wife, who I knew as my husband for 18 years at that point, came out as a trans woman. So it's a really positive tale of what can happen when you love and support the trans people in your life.
And is that why, these kind of stories about hate crime obviously affect you and your family so much?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. We are seeing such an increase in hate, in a lot of disinformation, which is like a campaign where people purposely spread lies online. That becomes misinformation, which people spread thinking it's the truth, and that becomes a lot of intolerance and bigotry. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that spill out into larger settings, into other communities. And this is what is happening in places like, we were speculating right now. We don't know know the actual cause, but we do know in the Pulse nightclub shooting, for example, that this was very much a hate-motivated crime. It's very likely that this is too. So yes, I do worry about my family, and I worry about a lot of other people who are just out there trying to live their lives.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the world's changed or if that I'm getting older, but I used to be like, oh, well, that happened, in that country, or that happened on the other side of the world. And I just find everything feels like it happens at home now, because it just seems to, no matter where things are happening in the world, you get to know the people, behind these crimes, the people that have lost their lives, and everything just feels like it's home.
We all have places like social media where somebody's cousin, for example, who lost somebody, will be posting a tribute to that cousin. So it really does start to feel like it's everyone's community. And in a way, it should be everybody's community. We should all be recognizing that we all know somebody from the LGBTQ plus community. If we're not members of it ourselves, we definitely love somebody who is. And in that sense, it does feel devastating to everybody. And we all need to take it really seriously.
For sure. What message would you have for somebody today that is fearful?
I would say take really, really good care of yourself right now. It's important to surround yourself with people who love you. Let people check up on you. Let people take care of you. Let people do something kind for you. If you really need to talk to somebody, there are peer support groups, there's counseling. I really, really recommend that you don't just push your own feelings down, and that you focus on moving forward and living as happily as you can right now.
You certainly have some people that say some horrible things to you on social media, and it breaks my heart, Amanda.
I do get a lot of hate online just simply for sharing our message of positivity, that we have this happy life, that we are supported, that we are loved. And it gets a lot of backlash. But the way I see it is like that is somebody else's issue. That's not my issue. It does become a larger issue when those beliefs, however, turn to violence. And that's where I would like to make a call to people who might have somebody who's rather intolerant, maybe in their family, who hears something over the holidays. Call them out on it. Have a conversation. Find out what their fears are, what their concerns are, and challenge that a little bit and help them. Because, if we all could catch this stuff earlier, I think it would make a really big difference.
For sure. I always love spending time with you. I just wish it wasn't on a day like today.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Amanda Jett-Knox joining us, author of Love Lives Here. Appreciate her time always. When we come back, we're going to have more discussions with people in your community. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap. This week on Simply Cooking by Chef, simple salads that will last all week in the fridge, give you a burst of flavor, and will please a big crowd.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi everybody,
My name is Brian Aslan, and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
Good morning, it's Monday, November 21st. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, -4 and mostly cloudy. In Smiths Falls, it's -3. Here's what's making news this hour. Canada's top intelligence officials are testifying at the public inquiry scrutinizing Ottawa's use of the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy protest. They are telling the commission today that the protest gave people with all kinds of grievances a chance to unite against a perceived common foe, but most of them likely had no connection to the trucker industry. Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair is expected to appear after security officials today. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also expected to testify before the hearings end on Friday, and so far we have heard from more than 60 witnesses. So far. Now, schools across the province are open today after education workers and the province secured a tentative contract and averted a strike. The Canadian Union of Public Employees, or CUPE, announced that a weekend of talks between the government and the union was successful, and a tentative deal was offered to its 55,000 education workers. Ratification votes will begin Thursday and expected to continue into the weekend. And a 33-year-old man is facing charges after a collision near College Square yesterday evening. Police say the man drove through a drive-through yesterday and while doing so struck a pedestrian and another vehicle. The man was impaired, according to police, and is now facing impaired driving charges. No one was injured. City News Time 11:32. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. For more local news anytime, head to ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you again for spending time with us here on City News. We wanted to check in with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation today with the federal director, Franco Terrazano. How are you, Franco?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk a little bit about 24 Sussex. Have you been to 24 Sussex, Franco?
Well, I've drove past it.
Okay, I've been inside, and I've got to be honest with you, it is a bit surprising to be inside 24 Sussex and see what it looks like. We think it's grandeur in there. It's not. It really has gone through a lot of years with no maintenance, really.
And we're hearing that just the annual upkeep of 24 Sussex alone is costing taxpayers $150,000. Now we're hearing the NCC say that they're going to do some repairs here, but I think the big concerning issue for taxpayers is that the NCC is saying that they don't have a budget. They don't have the exact costs, and they won't have one until after the procurement process. Well, that's not the best way to do these types of projects, and it explains, I think, why we continue to see the NCC give taxpayers massive bills to upkeep, to renovate, and to keep these official residences going here.
It's embarrassing, to be honest with you.
It is. It is. And so the NCC, to fully repair 24 Sussex, they think is going to cost nearly $40 million. Nearly $40 million. Then we have 6 other official residences, and the NCC thinks that, restoring all of the official residences, $175 million. On top of that, an extra $26 million in ongoing maintenance costs. So, the NCC is no stranger to ballooning the taxpayer tab. And to be quite frank, the NCC reminds me of the contractor that your buddy warns you about never to hire, because they keep coming back with just massive tabs, and they keep going over budget.
But here's what I don't understand. Here is this, obviously a residence that many people have lived in. Many prime ministers, well, Justin lived in it when he was a child. I mean, so, just to give you perspective, right? So this has been around for a long time. But why was there not just annual upkeep, annual upgrades on this house that didn't depend on the political front, because no prime minister wanted to be the prime minister that said, let's invest $2 million to upgrade this house in, let's say, the 80s, right? So then, of course, all these years later, 50 years later, 67 years later, it looks like it looks.
Well, you got to take this to an all-party committee. Got to do something like that. We have to take this to an all-party committee, because even just leaving 24 Sussex as it is still costing taxpayers $150,000, right? The NCC says to fully repair 24 Sussex, it's nearly $40 million. Well, how is that going to cost nearly $40 million? That is a huge tab. It shouldn't cost nearly $40 million to renovate a mansion, even though it's so big. I mean, I was just looking at some of the properties in the National Capital Region today. I stumbled into a $7.5 million mansion in the Ottawa region, 8 bathrooms. You can park your 10 cars there, and it costs $7.5 million to purchase,
right?
Which means that to repair 24 Sussex, you could have bought nearly 5 of those mansions.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand it either, to be honest with you. I mean, it's, to have a place where the Prime Minister would entertain other, heads of countries and all of that, it certainly isn't anywhere that, you can see our Prime Minister right now doesn't want to have his family there.
And, one of the issues here is that we have 3 official residences for the Prime Minister, right? The Prime Minister shouldn't be living in a rundown house. And he's not. He's living in another mansion just down the street, Rideau Cottage. And then he has Harrington Lake as well. And the NCC also ballooned tab on the Harrington Lake property. Mm-hmm. Just to renovate it, it's costing taxpayers about $11 million. The kitchen itself costs over $700,000. That's what people pay for their home in some places in Canada, and it costs the NCC that much just to renovate the kitchen.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't understand that at all.
Neither do I.
Franco, what is the answer then?
Answer for this?
Well, what is the answer?
There's a few different things. Okay, so answer number 1 is the cabinet, the finance minister, whomever is in charge of this needs to give the NCC a budget, because the NCC right now is saying that they won't have a budget for these repairs that they're undergoing until after procurement. Well, that's not how it should be done. Number 2, let's look at an all-party committee here to figure out what to do about the official residences, not just 24 Sussex, but the 6 official residences, right? We got to look at the official opposition's residence, the speaker's residence, the governor general's residences. So I think those are the 2 things that have to happen.
Mm-hmm. Is Pierre Poilievre living in the official opposition residence?
Yes, I believe he is. Now, here's another thing that we need to touch on. The former leader of the opposition, Miss Candice Bergen, it cost the NCC nearly $20,000 to move Miss Bergen into the official opposition's residence. Well, why would it cost the NCC nearly $20,000 to move someone within the same city? I don't understand that. I used to live in Calgary before moving to Ottawa. I moved essentially across the country for significantly less money than that.
I'm in the wrong business, Franco.
Yeah, I think we both are.
Jeez. So what do you want? One of the reasons that we have stories like this on City News, we bring this to the attention of our listeners here, is because we want people to take action. So is there something you want people to do? If they're upset about this today, what do you want someone to do today?
Well, thank you so much for that, because sunlight really is the best disinfectant here. And I think if you hear that it's going to cost nearly $40 million to repair 24 Sussex, according to the NCC's previous report, and that kind of boils your blood, you don't understand how in the world it could cost $40 million. Well, the number one thing you got to do is you got to pick up the phone, you got to write an email, you got to tell your member of parliament that those types of repair costs, renovation costs, are completely unacceptable.
What else is boiling your blood today, Franco?
What else is boiling my blood? That's a great question, and I'm not sure if we have enough time to talk about this, but last week, the parliamentary budget officer came out with a report. It shows that the bureaucracy is ballooning here at Ottawa. It shows that the average compensation now is about $130,000, of course, salary and non-salary benefits. But another big thing that's boiling my blood is that we've got our members of parliament who gave themselves 3 pay raises since the beginning of COVID-19 when many of their constituents struggled.
Mm-hmm. It has been a very difficult time for families. I mean, I think about, I just think about my own mortgage. My own mortgage went up, I think, $80 every 2 weeks, right? I mean, you think about mortgage, you think about inflation, interest rates, loans, all of those things. It's been definitely challenging for Canadians.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're getting hit on all angles some days, doesn't it, right? Interest rates going up. Of course, inflation is up, nearly 7% over the year. For people who are already struggling to afford the price of gas or afford the price of ground beef at the grocery store, that nearly 7% increase in a year really means a lot and really eats away at our wallets. Then, of course, you have the carbon tax has gone up multiple times, multiple years. You even have alcohol taxes that are going up every single year, and those are based on inflation. So next year, I think when we enjoy our favorite bottle of whiskey or favorite bottle of Pinot Noir with our better half, well, we're going to be hit significantly at the till because of rising alcohol taxes.
Wow. I mean, I don't really want to get you this excited on a Monday, but can we talk about the ArriveCan app for a second?
Oh, you really are going to boil my blood on a Monday.
So I have to be honest with you. I'm pretty easygoing. I do not understand how that app cost, and correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, $54 million. Am I right on that?
Yeah, $54 million. But also, that's double the price tag than what was first disclosed to the public. A significant amount of money is still being spent this year, which kind of raises some eyebrows here because ArriveCan is no longer mandatory. So why are we still spending millions and millions of dollars on it? But I think the biggest head scratcher in this story here is that you end up having two independent techies over the Thanksgiving weekend who were able to recreate the app within 2 days. And some suggest that the development cost could have been close to about $250,000. Now, it's one thing to recreate an app versus actually developing it for the first time. But, I mean, $54 million is a far shot away from $250K.
Well, Franco, what are we doing talking on the radio? We need to open up a moving company and a tech company. You and I would be, millionaires.
Yeah, we'd be doing a little bit better if we were getting contracts from the government, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I mean, give me a sense of what you're doing there, and maybe for those that haven't heard about your organization, you can give us a sense of what your mandate is.
Yeah, I mean, so we're here for lower taxes, less government waste, and more government accountability. We've been around for about 30 years. We are nonpartisan. We are a nonprofit. And we are completely funded by Canadian taxpayers. We don't take a cent from the government, so we're able to hold all parties accountable, all levels of government accountable, including municipal, provincial, and, of course, the federal government. Well,
we've talked about a lot today. Let's keep in touch, Franco, and let's keep the heat on, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Appreciate your time today. Franco Terrazzano joining us today, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We're going to be having a discussion with lots of different people today, including Natalie Lloyd, General Administrator with Wabeno Centre for Aboriginal Health. We're going to be talking about that Indigenous vaccine clinic that they're hosting there. And then, of course, it's Lunch with Sam. We're going to be talking about some very interesting topics today. You'll want to stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll tell you about one of the largest local markets, and it's taking place next week at the NAC, so we'll have that for you. We'll also tell you about the Style Guys. They have some great holiday glam entertaining ideas, so if you want to bring things up a notch, and also the Caring and Sharing Exchange. Each and every year, they have their Christmas hamper program. We'll tell you how you can get involved. All that and more on Monday.
I'm Mallory, and I was walking home one night when an impaired driver hit me. He had been overserved in 2 bars before getting behind the wheel. If the servers would have called him a cab instead of serving him more alcohol, my life would be the same as what it used to be. I think servers play the biggest role in keeping us safe because it's up to them what state the person's in when they leave. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. Mad Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You're driving down Montreal Road, right near the Vanier Parkway. You see this beautiful building. The architect is Douglas Cardinal, and he built this beautiful, designed this beautiful building called Wabineau Centre for Aboriginal Health. And Natalie Lloyd, General Administrator, joins me now. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, how are you doing, Sam?
Good. You just work in the most beautiful building in this city, I swear.
I truly feel that. It is an amazing building to be in. It's beautiful on the outside and inside.
Oh, beautifully said. And Natalie, I've been thinking a lot about you. You've always got something going on at Wabineau Centre, but a really important time right now to ensure the Indigenous community has their vaccine. You're holding special vaccine clinics as well.
Yeah, we're doing a family vaccine clinic this Saturday. It's in addition to our Tuesday and Thursday that we offer every week. And this is for all ages. We have from the pediatric dose all the way up to the bivalent. And people are signing up, which is fantastic. We're in a season right now where we're seeing an increase of cold and flu, as well as at this clinic for the first time, we're also offering the flu shot as well as the boosters.
Mm-hmm. Such an important piece. How has the Indigenous community been in terms of vaccines? Is there a large uptake?
Here in Ottawa, we've had a fantastic uptake. I've been told our clinics is one of the busier clinics. So people are signing up and coming out. We also help out with some of our seniors who otherwise could not get to a clinic by doing transportation. That's the above and beyond that we make sure that we also offer. Just to make it easier, because we know for some people there are some barriers to accessing healthcare, and we try to reduce as many of those barriers as possible at Wabineau.
Do you think the trust, because of it being administered at Wabineau Centre, is just increased with the Indigenous community, the fact that you're all there to support them?
Most definitely. A lot of people have mentioned that they feel really good that we're doing it here. They're coming. They know they're safe here. They have a trust with us. They've already coming here for other care, especially with the little ones. It's like they know us, right? If they're involved with us, they know us. They see our familiar faces. We give them a stuffy as soon as they arrive to hold on to while they go get their needle, which is scary for many little ones. So we just try to make it a pleasant experience as much as we can.
I would have liked you there when I was getting mine. I would have been comforted by that, Natalie. So let's talk a little bit about all the services at Wabineau for those that may not be familiar. Maybe we'll inspire someone to check you out, Natalie.
Yeah, we have everything from medical care to mental wellness support. We have cultural programming. Some of that programming happens online, and that's open to anybody. If they want to listen to the guest speakers, they could send a registration, and they'll get a link to that. We have youth programs. We have a fantastic early years program that goes out and does activities in the community as well as virtually. Really the whole spectrum. We have senior support programs. I see them here Monday and Wednesdays doing different groups and activities. It's fantastic. And housing support. If there's Indigenous people who are like, I am facing eviction, or I need to find a safer place to live because where I am, it's not safe. We have case managers who will advocate and get that support that they need.
So important. Can we talk about chocolate, Natalie? You know why.
We are very busy here with our chocolate right now. I was here Saturday with my daughter and wife, and we were helping them paint chocolate for the Christmas occasion. People can order custom-made Indigenous chocolates from our social enterprise, and they have many beautiful things. They have Indigenous specific. They have some Christmas chocolates. And then they have some unique flavors. This is a part of one of our programs that we're all very proud of because it gives opportunities for people who maybe aren't ready to go completely into the workforce to gain some skills. It also is a way of supporting our youth to learn different things. We had 2 youth with us this weekend who were learning about how to temper chocolate, doing the painting, using their creativity. It was amazing to see what they came up with.
Wow, it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
And
it's delicious.
And it is delicious. I've had the pleasure. It is absolutely delicious. Do you find, Natalie, that over the last number of years, and we know there's been obviously, tragedy, the graves being uncovered. We know that, I don't like using the word discovered because, Indigenous people were telling us that those graves were there for years.
Yeah.
So, they were there and maybe, non-Indigenous Canadians, feel like they were discovered. But the fact that they were there and we were told they were there for years, I don't like using that word. But I think that has really changed the conversation here in this country. Do you feel it?
Definitely. We get more people reaching out and say, wow, I didn't know and I want to know more. I just had a school here last week who is sponsoring 15 of our families for Christmas. And the youth came to learn more about who we are, what we do, and it was just fantastic seeing that level of community support. It's really touching.
It is really touching. I really appreciate everything you're doing, Natalie, for everybody through Wabano Centre. Let's stay in touch and continue to share your important message, okay?
Thank you. You take care, Sam.
You too, Natalie Lloyd, spending time with us today, General Administrator for the Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health in that beautiful building on Montreal Road. Boy, I had a very busy weekend. Did you have a busy weekend, Noah?
It was pretty tame, all considered.
Yeah.
We started doing the first kind of signs of life of Christmas appeared in my home.
Wow.
Yeah, my girlfriend came over. We did some Christmas decorations, got the tree up. So that's it was a pretty chill weekend.
Well, you were way ahead of me. My house is filled with boxes right now.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, because you're
moving. So it's very exciting. But I did take a bit of time out, and I headed to Stray Dog Brewer yesterday because I had a very important job.
And what was
I had
that?
to taste chili. I know it is
important. That's
I get all the
very
big.
important.
I get all the big jobs. So it was myself and a gentleman by the name of Frank Shabbat. He runs
Frank.
like a foodie group in Orleans, and there was Fred Sherwin, who's a journalist out in Orleans, Councillor Matt Lula.
Wow.
As well, we were all tasked with taste testing the chili.
Wow, that must.
Because there was a contest.
Yeah,
so,
that must be a great way to spend your weekend.
It was fantastic, I'll be honest. And Mark Plant, one of the owners of Stray Dog Brewery, and I went to high school together. So we realized yesterday that it had been 38 years since we've known each other. and I just about fell off my chair.
Wow,
But
yeah.
anyway.
You're aging yourself again.
I'm aging myself again. I surround myself with all you young people. It keeps me young. But
there you go.
But definitely that was a lot of fun. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to have to get up extra early because we're heading to Big Brothers Big Sisters. Ottawa is hosting a very special breakfast tomorrow, and I'm going to be the MC tomorrow, which I'm very excited
that's
about.
Awesome, and that's also it's a great event. So it's awesome that you're going to be on site, and we've talked about it before on the show as well. So it's very wonderful.
It's really, really great. So I'm going to be there, and we have one of the littles from Big Brothers Big Sisters, Gemma. She's going to be emceeing with me because I have to, of course, leave a little bit early so I can be on the air here. So she's going to take over, make sure that everything keeps running smoothly. But the big guest tomorrow at Big Brothers Big Sisters Ottawa fundraising breakfast is the one and only number 4, Chris Phillips.
Oh,
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
So I'm very excited. So he's going to be there tomorrow, really spending time with us, talking about that important topic of mentorship and leadership. And we saw him recently in a photo, a great photo with of course, Daniel Alfredson when he was receiving his incredible recognition of the Hockey Hall of Fame. And so Chris is going to be there. So there's going to be over 100 people tomorrow at this big breakfast. So an important time for sure for our city. So really important. Looking forward to that. But I'll be here at 10 o'clock bringing you, of course, all the news of the day. We wanted to get caught up as well with a couple of people for lunch today. So Michelle and Christina are going to be spending lunch with us today here on Lunch with Sam on City News. We're going to be talking about a couple of really important topics. One that's really been on my mind, and that is the importance of the selection of the different chairs for the committee. Really, really important topic there for us. So we're going to be talking about all of those chairs for the City of Ottawa, with those councillors and what role that they're going to take on. Of course, we've seen some of those councillors be in those roles for a long time, so we want to see how that's going to go. So we're going to be talking with Michelle Coates-Matter about that, as well as Christina Spencer. We're also going to be talking about what's happening with Twitter. What is Elon Musk doing? Is he blowing this thing up? We're going to be talking with them about that topic as well as Bill 23. We're going to be talking as well about the state of healthcare in this province. It certainly has been a challenging time. And then on the business lunch, we're going to talk about everything regarding money when it comes to the president and principal broker at CJC Financial. And we're also going to be speaking with Kathy McCallion from Ross Video. They've got some big news, as always, out of Ross Video. So we're going to be getting caught up with Kathy McCallion about that. And of course, the Bobs are coming up on Thursday night. That's the Better Ottawa Business Awards put on by the Ottawa Board of Trade and the Ottawa Business Journal. So those are always an important time in our city. So we're looking forward to hearing about all the big winners out of the Bobs. Keep it locked to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888-TAXI-GUY or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring you home safely. Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
Here we go.
You're going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
This week on Simply Cooking by Chef, simple salads that will last all week in the fridge,
give you a burst of flavor, and will please a big crowd.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, November 21st. Good afternoon. I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, it's mostly cloudy, -3, but it feels like -9. In Smiths Falls, -2. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa's new mayor is heading to Queen's Park tomorrow to discuss city priorities and building a good relationship with the Premier. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details on what some councillors would like to see.
The OC Transpo deficit is a big one for Councillor David Brown of West Carleton March.
Right now we're looking at least an $85 million funding deficit with OC Transpo, and that's going to hit the city's finances across the board.
Tim Tierney agrees and says one of his big personal ward priorities in Beacon Hill, Searville is on the roads.
I heard time and again, and being chair of Transportation Committee, we always want more roads, and that is something I certainly heard at the door quite a bit.
That infrastructure is something the suburban and rural councillors can both agree on and say it's time for the city to get back to the basics. Snow clearing, fixing roads, and things like that. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time, 12:01. Now taking a look at your weather for the next few days. Here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We've got some active weather today, some flurries at times. A couple of centimeters could accumulate in a gusty wind out of the south-southwest. Then it's pretty quiet for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, though, heads up, we could get some freezing rain Friday morning. For today, the guaranteed high, +2.
Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, -3. In Smiths Falls, it's -2. A big development at the inquiry into the Emergencies Act. The head of Canada's spy agency says they thought the act was needed to end the convoy protests. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with the details.
Right now, we have 3 officials from our spy agency, CSIS, on the witness stand, and through a summary of his witness testimony, we have found out that the head of CSIS, David Vignon, didn't think that the convoy protest hit the threshold of a national security threat under their definition. However, when he advised Cabinet on the situation, he told the Prime Minister he felt the Emergencies Act was needed. Here's an exchange between a commission lawyer and Vignon.
So if I'm understanding the way you've put those two together, that if you take a broader definition and then look more broadly, you come up with the advice you gave to the Prime Minister of your belief that it was required to invoke the Act.
Yes, that's exactly it. Thank you. This is a big development since the lawyer for the convoy organizers had been arguing throughout this inquiry that since CSIS didn't see the convoy as a national security threat, the act shouldn't have been invoked, and yet the head of CSIS says it should have. A portion of the CSIS testimony was held behind closed doors earlier this month because it deals with top secret information. Later today, we'll hear from the Emergency Preparedness Minister, Bill Blair. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And fallout is continuing today after the province's top doctor was seen without a mask at a gathering last week. City's Richard Southern is at Queen's Park with the details.
After strongly recommending all Ontarian adults unequivocally wear a mask last Monday, Dr. Moore appeared at a busy indoor party last Thursday without a mask. Asked about this today, Natalie Mara, Executive Director of the Ontario Health Coalition, said she couldn't believe it.
When I saw that video, I thought, whoa, he has to resign. It is not what we would expect of a Chief Medical Officer of Health in this circumstance at all.
In a statement, Dr. Moore said he urged everyone to use their, quote, best judgment when it comes to masks. But given the situation in hospitals, the Ontario Health Coalition says that doesn't go far enough.
In our view, the crisis is unprecedented. It is tearing through any remaining resilience of staff in the hospital system.
Pediatric ICUs remain over capacity. At Queen's Park, Richard Southern, City News.
And I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. For more news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime here on City News, and that means Lunch with Sam, where we feast on those top news stories of the day. And we've invited to the table today Michelle Coates-Mather as well as Christina Spencer. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hello. Christina Spencer is the editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen, and Michelle is the founder of Presence and Influence. Christina, I know you and I have been watching very closely, of course, the municipal election, and now we have our mayor sworn in, and the next big job is to select the chairs of those committees for the City of Ottawa. What are you expecting to see from a chair perspective? Any predictions?
Well, I don't know what I'm expecting. What I would be hoping, I think, would be what a lot of people have been talking about, which is the mayor being a little less controlling than, let's say, the Watson era in terms of who runs some of these committees. And we know that a lot of councillors were very disappointed during the last council that they didn't get to sit on, let alone chair, committees in the areas they were interested in. And, I mean, one understands it from the mayor's point of view. You know, he wants to see certain things happen, so sort of trusted people get those chairs. Let's put it that way. This time out, will the new mayor be more sort of open to seeing people not only on the committees but chairing the committees who don't perhaps share every single, you know, idea or opinion that he has? This is what we're looking to see, I think. It's going to be really interesting. Michelle, are you watching closely?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the mayor has made it clear that Team Ottawa is his ultimate objective, which means, you know, he can't be micromanaging this process. So it will be very interesting to see the collaborative approach or shift in approach that we might see in the months ahead. But certainly, you know, those of us in the public affairs space are going to be checking out to see who lands in key positions among committees like finance, transportation, economic development. I mean, these are all really important committees that have a lot of big issues to tackle, from housing and LRT and road infrastructure. So it's going to be a busy few months.
And planning is always an interesting one as well, Christina. I'm really anxious to see who's going to get planning this term. Well, whoever it is has my sympathy already, just given what we've seen out of the Ontario government in the last few weeks. For sure. You know, it's going to be a real challenge. I mean, here we have this city that has been working for a long time on its official plan that got changed around. Now we've had two pieces of legislation, you know, introduced at Queen's Park that kind of, I'm not going to say they make a mess of things, but they certainly make things much more complicated if you're trying to be a good Team Ottawa Democratic council responding to people. Planning will be one of the hot seat chairs for sure. 100%. And Michelle, as well. You know, it's there are a lot of people who are going to be A, scratching their heads, and B, saying, "Oh my God, what do we do with this stuff that Queen's Park is telling us to do?" For sure, 100%. And Michelle, I just think about some files as just being like, you know, just keep going with the chair that they've got. I think about library, for instance, with Councillor Matt Luloff, so passionate about library, lots underway there. You know, it'd be kind of nice to see him be able to fulfill that and take it right through to when that new library opens, for instance.
Completely. There is value in continuity for a lot of these committees. You know, lots of fresh faces, though, around the city council table. So who knows? We'll see where it all lands. But certainly I think it's fair for us all to feel a sense of hope and optimism that we may see a more collaborative approach at these committees, at least in the interim phase, so people get to know each other a bit better. One name I'm really anxious to see, obviously we have a lot of returning councillors and then we've got new faces, but one that sort of straddles both is Steve DeRush, for instance, who was deputy mayor at one point. Christine, I'm really anxious to see if he ends up sort of getting a nod for something, the fact he's come back to City Hall. It will be interesting to see. I mean, he's obviously very, I think, well briefed. He could step into any of the chairmanships without having to go through a really, really steep learning curve. So you might very well see him in an influential position on one of these committees. But you know, it is interesting because you talk about
continuity. You might get someone like an Alan Hughley who, had a very, very taxing job under the last council, and I don't know whether he still wants to be involved running transit or not.
Right.
These are things that are life-shortening if you're the person chairing them.
Right.
So we'll see.
It's so funny because I think when you get the nod, the sort of shininess of it wears off in about 45 seconds, Michelle, right? It's kind of like, do I want, that sounds fantastic. Oh, chair's a big title. Okay, now it's worn off already, right? I think it does wear off quite quickly. When we were looking back last week, of course, we know Mayor Sutcliffe has now sort of taken the reins, and we saw him with the chain of office, which still took me a little bit to get used to be honest with you. And then, of course, all those councillors get sworn in as well. We know, Michelle, they took that Emmy style or that Oscar style picture as well. Do you think they'll ever be smiling like that again all around a table, Michelle?
Oh boy, one can hope, but let's face it. Last week they were all in a honeymoon phase. Now the rubber hits the road, right? And the real work for City Council begins. Let's not be naive. This is politics. So, I do believe that our new mayor, certainly he was elected on a platform and a brand that he is able to collaborate. He's, pragmatic, he's objective. But as we know how things go, political will and ideology can make that effort challenging. But, I do think if there's anyone that can do it, it's likely our new mayor. So we'll see how it unfolds.
It's going to be really interesting. And I feel like I'm watching a bit of a train wreck, or should I call it a Twitter wreck. Christina, I don't know if you've been watching the implosion, as I'm referring to it, of Twitter over the last little while. Elon Musk, of course, at the head of it all. It just seems like every day is a new drama. We know that he's invited back, Donald Trump to be back on Twitter. It just seems like the whole thing's falling apart. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Twitter is not something that any of us really, I think, has ever had a high opinion of. It's more like a necessity. If you're in journalism, you have to be on Twitter, right? Because there's just too much going on there. But it's also, I always think of it as among the social media I'm on. To me, it's the nasty one. So if another nasty guy is on there, Trump comes back, I guess I don't have to follow him, but I will because I'm in news. But, what happens next to it? I mean, as much as I dislike much of what I see on Twitter, of course I'm going to miss it dreadfully if it's gone, if it actually does implode, because I found it's a tool I need as a journalist. But do normal people need it in their normal lives? I think it'd probably be better for everyone's mental health if they didn't.
Exactly. You're echoing exactly what I said yesterday when I saw that the veil was going to be taken off and that Donald Trump was going to be able to be back on Twitter. I turned to my daughter and I said, I wish I didn't need this for my job. Michelle, how do you feel?
Yeah, I completely agree with this. I mean, so same thing. I actually recently deleted it off of my phone, which was hugely liberating, but also for my job, I need to see what's going on. It's how I stay on top of things. But look, I do think Twitter has increasingly become a very cynical platform, right? It's hardly a place to go now for objective debate on policy, and it's really become nothing more than an echo chamber and a place to reaffirm your own confirmation bias. So I think there is merit in thinking about how to readjust Twitter, but this seems, I think your word implosion is spot on. That's certainly what looks to be happening. I believe that there will be another Twitter that pops up. Like, what's the new iteration of Twitter? Somebody is bound to create it at some point.
And they should call it Nice Twitter.
Right,
Nice Twitter.
Nice Twitter.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
My producer, Noah, is naming the site, and I'm forgetting what it is. Noah, what is it?
Yeah, so Mastodon right now is kind of the new platform that people are moving towards.
Right,
really?
Mastodon. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of my friends saying, catch me on Mastodon, and here's how to find me on Mastodon. I'm thinking to myself, I need one more thing on my phone, like I need a hole in the head. I mean, I just have so many apps and everything on there. I don't even know if I have the energy. Christine, did you have the energy for another one?
Well, the thing about, the virtue of Twitter is that it's so easy. Mastodon is not. and a number of other platforms that are trying to jump into the space are more complicated. And how much people will go to them, it's not yet clear, what will happen there. I mean, I'm sure you are too, on Twitter, ironically, a lot of people saying, hey, I've migrated over to Mastodon, but it's really difficult, and I can't figure out the back end.
Right.
So
the irony.
Dealing with, and you probably will not have the kind of replacement for Twitter that we all hope for, where it's really easy to deal with, and you can find sources easily, and, I don't know, your OPH, and you can put out mask messages easily, whatever it is.
Right.
So I don't know that we're seeing what the replacement will be yet. That is certainly one of the big names that people are looking at.
For sure. Remember the good old days when we just turn in the radio, Those were good old days. Those were good old days. They're still here, thank heavens. Michelle Coates-Mather, founder of Presence and Influence, and Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor with the Ottawa Citizen. We're coming back to talk more on Lunch with Sam about those hot topics of the day. I hope you'll stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslin and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
So, this organ, which I regret I cannot name because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school.
Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
What is it?
Anxiety disorder. Depression.
Clear.
PTSD. 1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds and bring hope to those in need.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And it is Lunch with Sam time here on City News and, of course, Rogers TV. Thank you so much for tuning in to us today. On the lunch menu today, lots of hot news topics, including Bill 23, this housing bill by Minister Steve Clark. Michelle Coates-Mather, founder of Presence and Influence, joins us, as well as Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen. Michelle, let's talk a little bit about Bill 23, and we're seeing a lot of opposition to this bill. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the opposition is reasonably fair. I mean, there are a lot of question marks around this bill that need to be discussed. And I think the bill really could set the tone for the kind of relationship that we can expect to see from our new mayor in the province. Mayor Sutcliffe, he's got a job ahead of him now to advocate what the right deal is for Ottawa, and that's ultimately what his responsibility will be. So I think some of those big questions that he's got to bring to the province are, why exactly is the province setting housing quotas, for example? It seems a bit counterintuitive. Our city has a better sense of population growth data trends. What role does the city have in influencing what housing quotas might look like? And then second, there's really no answer to this how will growth pay for growth question, right? If the province is cutting development charges, that money has to come from somewhere. And I don't see how Ottawa taxpayers won't end up footing the bill for those charges. So these are fair concerns that I would only assume Mayor Sutcliffe will bring forward.
Bang on. That's exactly what I was thinking about, Michelle, in terms of how we're going to pay for this, those development charges. I mean, I used to, a long time ago, I used to work for Mayor Mary Pitt at the city of Nepean. And, I remember the conversations regarding those development charges. That's how we had the infrastructure to have communities actually live and call those places home. And Christina, you've been doing this a long time. This is a big question. It really does impact municipalities.
It does in many ways that are still very unclear. I mean, you've both put your finger, I think, on one of the main ones, which is the gap basically in who pays for stuff, right? If development charges are fewer, which means we've still got to get the infrastructure in there. They're not paying what they would pay for parkland or green space. What happens? Who foots the bill? Well, if you're the province, we're happy to download the footing of that bill to the municipality. It's not going to be our problem. That's the way these things work, as you say, politics. But so many unknowns about other things, right? So, people who live in single-family dwellings, the so-called R1 exclusionary zoning areas, are going to see changes coming probably more rapidly than they thought. On the flip side, council and many councils have worked very, very hard, to get what's called inclusionary housing, right? Basically affordable housing built into new developments. And that seems to go not quite by the board, but certainly it feels like it does, just based on what's in the bill here. This whole expansion of the urban boundary doesn't sound on its face like it's really environmentally positive. We would see, how that works, but the fact that it can happen, all these are very worrisome things for cities. So it's A, about the bottom line, but it's B, just about is this going to be smart building for this particular city? So when Mayor Sutcliffe, sits down and talks with the Premier, I'm sure all of this will come up.
For sure, absolutely. And it's no surprise to either one of you that the state of healthcare right now in this province, well, in the country as a whole, is really challenging. Michelle, talk to me a little bit about, is there any impact to anybody sort of in your network about the healthcare we're in right now?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, I have 3 young children under the age of 9. Most of my network are parents and families with young kids. So we have been facing issues around access to, CHEO, raising cases in emergency wards, lack of access to medication, all of these things. It's impacting every family, regardless of where you live in this city, right? And or across the country. It's a serious issue. I think where we need to become a bit more ambitious, though, is we seem to be circling back to Band-Aid responses, right? We're talking a lot more about mask mandates, and whether you agree or disagree with mask mandates, I think we can all agree that it's not solving the real issue that we're dealing with right now. We have systemic system failures across our healthcare delivery system in every province across the country that will not be solved by mask mandates. It might help with reducing, case counts, depending on what we're dealing with, flu, COVID, what have you, but it's not actually fixing the system. So we really need to become far more concerned with addressing what those core issues are and unlocking, provinces' ability to innovate healthcare delivery. We cannot be afraid to have a real debate on healthcare reform in this country. And if not now, when?
Such an important conversation. Although I'm thinking with 3 kids under 9 that you might need a nap, Michelle. I don't know how you do that.
I mean, I always need a nap.
Oh, I have so much respect for you. I'm thinking we can't call you at lunchtime. You should nap at lunchtime. Thank you so much for those comments, because I think it's that personal connection that really can impact people, right? When it's impacting your actual world. How about you, Christina? Is there anything in your world that's impacted by healthcare right now?
Well, there certainly has been in the past, and I mean, I have. We went through sort of the first wave of COVID with older people in the family, and in long-term care. And all of the issues that arose there, which, by the way, haven't gone away. We're now focused on a different cohort, which is young people, and I understand why. I think we need that focus. But it's not like long-term care has suddenly been solved either. It has not. And it's not like people are not dying of the flu and COVID in long-term care. They are. One of the things that would help us in dealing with some of the core problems, whether it's these ones or others, is getting statistics out there again for people, right? All of these measures were out there for us in the first year and a half, and now they're not. And it's very hard for people to actually see the bigger picture of what is going on. We know there's no kids' Tylenol available, and that's pretty alarming. We know because CHEO's doing a very good job of telling us the realities of the situation, what is happening for kids who have to go to the ER. This is important, but these are all small chunks of what's happening in the healthcare system. And I think no member of the public really gets a good overview picture of it now. So when you want to talk about healthcare reform, which is, Michelle's absolutely right, it's difficult to know where you're going to start because we're only each of us seeing our own little tiny portion of what's happening.
Such a good point, for sure. Well, I always like ending lunch on a bit of a happy note. Michelle, are you going to be traveling at all this winter?
Actually, yes. We're traveling next week to Florida, believe it or not. So I don't know if that counts as winter, but in my books it does.
Absolutely.
This will be, the first time that we've traveled with our children.
Wow.
But hey, we're doing it at some point. I think we reached the point where we just have to get back to living, whatever that looks like. So off we go.
Fantastic. Good for you. That's great. How about you, Christina? Are you planning any winter travel?
Not winter, but maybe in the spring.
Nice.
We've had a long-delayed trip to Spain planned for several years now.
Oh, wow.
Hoping that this might be the year that happens.
Oh, Spain is definitely on my bucket list.
Lovely.
For sure. I'm going to do, with my daughter and my mom, we're going to be heading to Turks and Caicos over the March break.
Oh, you'll love it.
Fantastic.
And I think this will be our 3rd time, and it's one of those most beautiful places. But whenever I'm there, I say, I sort of curse a little bit, and why didn't Pierre Trudeau buy this country when we had the chance? Because it is so beautiful there. So we look forward to that. Well, we ended on a bit of a high note. Everyone's got a bit of a plan, which is great. Michelle Coates-Mather joining us, of course, founder of Presence and Influence. Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen. I have enjoyed my lunch with you both today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
It's been appreciated. And, of course, we're so glad that you're here. You're here on Rogers TV and City News, and we're just so happy that you are because we just couldn't do it without you. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and RogersTV.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to RogersTV.com to add your announcement to the community billboard.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
This week on Simply Cooking by Chef, simple salads that will last all week in the fridge, give you a burst of flavor, and will please a big crowd.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, November 21st. Good afternoon. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -1 with partly cloudy skies. Here's what's making news this hour. A document shown at the public inquiry into Ottawa's use of the Emergencies Act to clear the Freedom Convoy protesters shows that the Canadian Security Intelligence Service was unaware of any tangible plans for violence before the protesters arrived. The information was conveyed in a briefing note to Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino in late January. Now, David Vigneault, director of the country's security service, was among intelligence officials who testified today at the public inquiry. Healthcare advocates revealed plans today to launch a constitutional challenge to an Ontario law that allows some elderly hospital patients to be discharged to a nursing home they did not choose. The Ontario Health Coalition and the Advocacy Centre for the Elderly are leading the legal challenge against the legislation, which was passed in late August and came into effect today. Now, even though this is meant to ease pressures on hospitals, advocates say the law could allow hospitals to override patient consent and could send the elderly in northern regions as far as 150 kilometers from home if there are no beds available. And Ottawa's Mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, heads to Queen's Park tomorrow in hopes to bring some of the city's top priorities to the table. Some of those include the $85 million OC transport deficit, the May-long weekend storm cleanup, and the controversial Bill 23 housing bill. Now, some councillors say that funding should go towards city roads, infrastructure, and snow clearing. City News Time, 12:31. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. For more news anytime, head to ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it is the business lunch here on City News. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Boy, the word recession, we get a little bit nervous when we hear that word. The inflation rate, of course, and all of the challenges regarding the interest rates for families have been weigh heavily on families' minds for sure. We wanted to spend some time today with Stephen Cleary, president and principal broker of SJC Financial. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good. Well, there's that recession word, which makes people a little bit nervous. Stephen, what are you hearing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is talk right now in the media and from some of our economists across Canada and even, in the States as well about a recession coming. I think, we don't want to jump to any kind of conclusions. There is still, I think, the possibility of a soft landing. At SJC Financial, we're mortgage brokers and mortgage agents. And what we do is we try to mitigate the risk by, assessing people's equity they have in their home. We stress test all of the rates currently just to make sure that people can afford these payments. And right now, it's still looking like people are able to afford these payments. And so what we might have, and hopefully we have, is a soft landing, maybe a mild recession. Mm-hmm. So, I'd like to, say that, I know people are fearful right now, but they could reach out to us and we could assess their personal situations.
And when you do the stress test, walk me through what that looks like.
Well, basically here with the stress test is we get an understanding of each individual's income, what that looks like, gross income, and we also find out what their liabilities are, unsecured liabilities, and then we add in their mortgage payment into that calculation and basically divide that by their gross income, and that's how we get to what's called the total debt service ratio. Now, I know that might be hard to understand just hearing it from you verbally, but you could also Google that sort of information and reach out to us, and we can definitely assist with that. But basically, to your overall personal balance sheet, what that may look like, and making a calculation on the percentage that you would owe and make a payment towards your overall debt, which includes your mortgage payment.
Right. And it's so difficult for first-time home buyers. What are you telling them, Stephen?
What I'm saying to the first-time home buyers is, look, like, you know, I think Warren Buffett said it best: when others are fearful, become greedy, and become fearful when others are greedy, right? So basically here is that right now I think you're seeing the market coming down, and I think, you know, they should reach out and see what they qualify for, and it might be an opportunity to step into the market. I know a lot of people were on the sidelines before the rates started going up. We have rates in the 1s and 2s. But I think right now is a good time for people to relook at and reevaluate where they were at maybe 6 months to a year ago. And this could be an opportunity, because I'm hearing from our realtors that we work closely with, and I'm seeing myself here with the 30 agents we have that work at the brokerage, that real estate prices are coming down. And they're down about 10 to 20% right now across, depending on your city you are living in Canada.
It certainly has. I noticed a couple of townhouses listed for under $400,000, which we certainly weren't seeing that this time last year or the year before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like townhomes, that's a great example. I think that's the one that got hit the most are the townhomes. You know, we're seeing they were up at around, I think, 700 1 year ago. Bid wars. Right now, you could get in the market, no bid wars. I think that's great. And you know, if you could pick something up with a deal, have an inspection clause in there, get a financing clause in there, and that gives everybody time instead of, you know, being in this big rush and dealing with a bid war. I think it's a good time right now.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on people, Stephen, wasn't there?
There was. You know, I mean, we used to do deals, you know, and we would get calls, hey, I need the approval today. Like, I'm putting my offer in. There's 10 other offers going in. We need to know we can waive our condition. And that kind of puts everybody on edge, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. And let's talk a little bit about how people can prepare themselves for, you know, for the challenges that are coming potentially down the pipe in 2023.
I think, you know, always assessing your budget, always looking at your personal finances is a good way to start. I think speaking with a professional, getting advice from professionals is always a good thing to do. You know, I find people talk to their neighbor that might not be in finances, that, you know, may not have the extensive understanding that we may have here at the brokerage, or that we do have. And I think getting eyes on your personal budget and sort of figuring out, you know, if you're finding it tight, then, you know, you absolutely there's two ways of doing it. If you own your home, is there equity in your home that you could tap into to deal with this, you know, potential recession that might be coming? May last a little longer than we expect. You know, at the end of the day, nobody really knows. So it's putting yourself in a situation where you have a reserve to tap into. And if that is equity in your home, then let's talk about it. You know, if you have some savings, maybe we can make your savings work through private mortgage investments, you know, where you could get a yield of 10% approximately. So there's a lot of ways to make money and to protect yourself than, you know, thinking you're stuck.
Very, very good point. We're just receiving some breaking news. I'm just going to interrupt us for a second, Stephen. Receiving some breaking news from Ottawa Fire. They are on scene of a third alarm fire on Arthur and Plymouth, which is in the Glebe. There's heavy smoke and flames there. So they're asking you to avoid that area. And of course, that is the Glebe, Arthur and Plymouth area. Ottawa Fire indicating to us that they are on scene for a third alarm fire there. So we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled there. So stay with us here on City News for any update on what's happening in the Glebe. Stephen, when I think about all of the things that are happening in the world right now, of course, we know we've got a war raging in Ukraine. We know we've got, obviously, as we spoke about, inflation and interest rates. There's just so many things, and COVID isn't over, right? There's so many things that are impacting the economy right now. When you sit down with somebody for the first time, what's that initial discussion like to try and figure out, their goals, what they want to do, but all the other barriers that might be facing them, outside sources sort of influencing what's happening in terms of money?
I agree with this statement, and it's funny, I had that conversation this morning with a client. There's so much going on right now. You talk about COVID, you talk about, the headlines in the media, recession. People are scared right now. And I think the number one thing is you really need to look at your cash flow. I think you got to make sure that you have a buffer, like I was explaining before. And a lot of this noise, and I call it noise because, what's going on in Ukraine, it's definitely going to impact the global markets. But sometimes things are out of our hands in ways where you got to bring it back down to you as an individual. And what can you do yourself to help your cash flow? If you're on a variable rate right now, and it's an adjustable variable rate, I'll give an example, and your rate is going to increase, and that extra $200, $500 is going to put you in the hole. Well, maybe you need to get on the phone right now with a professional and discuss, okay, what if I lock it in for 2 years or 3 years? Will my lender allow that? What if there's equity in there and I refinance? If my amortization is 15 years, my payment, let's say, is $2,500 a month. If I go all the way to a 25, 30-year amortization, does that, increase my cash flow by $500 or $1,000? So again, I'm going to bring it back, as an individual, if you're feeling stressed out, and I think we're all feeling it a little bit right now, is reach out to us, contact us, and let's, come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm. Such an important time for all of us to be thinking about the pennies and of course the dollar bills as we head towards the holiday season as well. And that always puts a lot of pressure on people, Stephen.
100%, like I know I have kids at home, and for sure, anyone that has kids right now, and if they're feeling the pinch, they're definitely trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get, where am I going to find that money for the toys, for the nice dinner with the family and all of that. And what I've always found, and what's made us, I think, what's made us different from others is that we always are looking for creative solutions. Mm-hmm. And there's always solutions. There's ways of getting creative with people's finances, and there's short-term solutions and there's long-term solutions. And so maybe right now you need a short-term solution to set you up for the long term. And anyone that right now is feeling it, feeling that stress, I think they need to, again, reach out to a professional, open up their cash flow, look at their personal finances, and get some advice.
Absolutely. Great advice from you today. Thank you so much, Stephen Cleary, spending time with us today, talking about recession. But you were a bit soft on us, Stephen. You made it okay. So thank you.
Well, I tried. I like to look at the silver lining and everything. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the Business Lunch. Stephen Cleary, President and Principal Broker with SJC Financial. An important conversation there. Just a reminder as well, Ottawa Fire has asked us to ask you to avoid the area of Plymouth and Arthur. There is a 3-alarm fire happening there, a 3-alarm fire happening in the Glebe area. So avoid the area of Plymouth and Arthur. Let's give those first responders lots of space to be able to do the important work that they're doing today. So Ottawa Fire, once again, reminding everybody to stay away from Plymouth and Arthur Street in the Glebe. When we come back, we're going to spend some time today with Kathy McCallion from Ross Video. Well, and she's got some good news for us. Boy, we need some good news today. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll tell you about one of the largest local markets, and it's taking place next week at the NAC, so we'll have that for you. We'll also tell you about the Style Guys. They have some great holiday glam entertaining ideas, so if you want to bring things up a notch, and also the Caring and Sharing Exchange. Each and every year, they have their Christmas hamper program. We'll tell you how you can get involved, all that and more on Monday.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrive Alive smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Bipolar disorder.
Substance addiction. Bulimia. OCD. Want to swap?
One in two, a flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, you're back on Rogers TV and City News, and we're so glad you are. It is the business lunch, and I love on the business lunch when we get to talk about something super sweet, and that is today with Kathy McCallion from Ross Video. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Sam.
Kathy, what's your role at Ross Video?
Sam, my role is the manager of community relations, and it's always a view with attracting the best and the brightest.
The best and brightest, and you certainly must be feeling like you've done that job because you've been voted a top place to work. Tell me about this, Kathy.
Yes, we got the fantastic news a couple of months ago that we were selected as one of Canada's top 100 employers.
And how did that feel?
Oh, it was great. Well, absolutely thrilled, obviously, and quite an honor. You know, they were pointing out that there was more nominations than ever this year, and the quality of those nominations were really strong. So we're thrilled.
And what do you think makes Ross Video a great place to work?
Well, there's so many reasons, honestly, Sam. But one of the big things that they pointed out to us was our flexible hybrid work model, our comprehensive benefits packages, and one of the things that we've really developed over the last couple of years is our leave programs. So, that they include our maternity, paternity, and adoption leaves, as well as sick leaves, pertaining to family and medical and compassionate care.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those have really been developed, and we've been actually we were certified by the Canadian Compassionate as a Canadian Compassionate Company by the Canadian Hospice Palliative Care Association.
What an important designation that is. I think, when we normally think about leave, we think about maternity leave and sick leave, right? We don't think about compassionate leave. We don't think about paternity leave as much as we should. And certainly, I love that you're speaking about adoption leave as well. It's really important. Did some of those ideas come from the employees themselves, or was it developed at the senior leadership table?
Well, both. To be honest with you, I adopted two children myself, so that leave is near and dear to my heart. But it is. We do develop our programs with the input of our employees. And then, of course, that is in turn taken to senior management, and they've been extremely supportive when it comes to our leave program.
Well, that's amazing. And I know you've got some offices here in Ottawa, but important as well. You have some places that people are working for Ross Video in Iroquois.
That's right. So our manufacturing facility is in Iroquois, Ontario, about 1 hour outside of Ottawa. We are just on the cusp of finishing our expansion of that facility. It is a Canadian green energy manufacturing facility, and that expansion will be completed at the end of this year.
Such an important point, especially for that community, Kathy. I would think that you would be a main employer there, would you not?
We are. I think we are considered one of the top employers in the region.
And when as over the years, I've had the pleasure of interviewing you, of course, and also David Ross, the head of Ross Video, the CEO of Ross Video, and it really has over the years. I've learned a lot about this company, and really the fact that you've remained Canadian is a really important piece. But it really does feel very much, it is a family business, started that way. It doesn't feel like it's lost that, where so many businesses over time can lose that feeling.
That's correct, Sam. Really, we want people to, when they come and join Ross, we want them to be part of the family, and it very much is a team environment. And we want our programs are really based on the fact that our senior management cares about their employees, and they want them to do well, and in turn that caring is also passed on to our customers.
And I'm assuming you're always looking for talent. We just even heard from a healthcare organization. They're looking for 400 people. So I can imagine every business and every organization is looking to attract talent. Are you still looking far and wide as well?
We are, yes. We probably have close to 200 positions to staff this year alone. And I really do feel that number is probably going to grow. And of course, with our expansion of our manufacturing facility, we'll also have opportunities in Iroquois as well.
And it's so interesting. We met in person recently, which is rare these days, as we know, Kathy. We met in an event called Disrupt HR, where we talked about those disruptive opportunities in the HR field, because it is hard to attract talent. Did you enjoy that great event?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. Loved it. And you did a fantastic job hosting.
Oh, you're very sweet.
Much, Sam.
You're very sweet. It was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of really important discussions there that day about sort of that hybrid model, right? Allowing employees that flexibility. So it's not just Ross Video thinking about these things. It's lots of companies, because I think we have to think differently now, Kathy.
We do. A lot has changed over the last couple of years, right? And we know that we know that people can be extremely productive from home. One of the big studies that has come out about those who are introverted versus extroverted individuals, and it takes a lot of energy for an introverted person to come to an office, right, and interact with their colleagues. And a lot of those people did really, really well at home.
Interesting. And then I think about extroverted people like myself, who probably waste a little bit time chatting. Probably more productive at home as well. Exactly. Yeah, that's great. It's really important to celebrate these milestones, and I want to say congratulations to everyone at Ross Video. And how are you going to celebrate this great nod to the company?
Well, we had David really did cheer on the team when we got to make the announcement officially Friday morning. So that was wonderful. Our CFO, George Angus, and I got the pleasure of going down to Toronto on Friday to accept the awards on behalf of Ross. So that was wonderful.
Oh, that's fantastic, Kathy. Congratulations to everyone once again at Ross Video for being voted a top 100 place to work, and look forward to getting caught up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Sam.
It's certainly my pleasure, and appreciate everyone joining us here for the Business Lunch. Lots to talk about here. We're going to be having some really interesting conversations tomorrow. I really want to make sure you tune in tomorrow. Kevin Donovan, and I know you've heard this name before. Kevin writes for the Toronto Star. He's going to be joining us tomorrow to talk about the murders of Honey and Barry Sherman. You might remember in 2017, December the 13th, this billionaire couple was killed in their home, and it was horrific circumstances. And they were discovered, and they had been probably deceased for a couple of days. This crime has not been solved, and it continues to boggle the minds of detectives and their family, of course, and the community as a whole. We've learned some new information, and Kevin Donovan's going to join us tomorrow here on the Sam Laprade Show to talk about this important case. This was a couple that was very philanthropic. And although I had never met Honey and Barry Sherman before, certainly because of my philanthropic work, their name certainly was certainly on my radar, but I had never had the opportunity to meet with them. But they were very philanthropic. They were billionaires. As we know, Barry Sherman owned a number of companies, including a medical company. So we wanted to follow up with Kevin Donovan. We've been following this story with him. Kevin wrote a book a number of years ago, so he came on and started those discussions with us here on City News a couple of years ago, but we're going to get caught up with Kevin Donovan tomorrow. We're also going to get caught up with Gary Dimmick. And Gary Dimmick writes for the Ottawa Citizen. You can find him at Crime Garden. He's talking about a teacher at an Orleans high school. That high school, St. Matthew's, that's the school that I went to. Gary Dimmick went to that high school as well. Speaking about a teacher, a disgraced teacher there, who is by the name of Rick Dispati. He's a longtime teacher, celebrated basketball coach, and he is on trial for 14 charges of sex crimes involving 4 girls. This story is so disturbing. Gary's going to join us tomorrow as well to talk about this particular story. Gary is an incredibly talented writer. If you haven't followed him, you can follow him at Crime Garden, and he follows some of the most disturbing stories in this city. And I don't know how he does it, but he does an incredible job of bringing those stories to the forefront. Because a lot of people aren't covering these tough stories, but Gary is there following them. He's going to join us tomorrow. So tomorrow you'll definitely want to be here for those stories, along with a lot of other guests. Sometimes we have upwards of 16 people on this show in a day. So you just never know what you're going to get. So we're so happy that you are spending time with us. It's time for me to turn over the microphone to the one and only Danielle Bain. Appreciate the help, of course, of our producers. Noah and Aaron done a great job helping us today. A big thank you to Mark Day as well as our news director. Our whole team is working hard for you today. We're going to keep you up to date as well about what's happening in the Glebe. We know Ottawa Fire is on scene right now of a fire at Plymouth and Arthur. So we're going to want to make sure that we keep you up to date on that. So you'll want to lock it and keep us on all afternoon here on City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.